Chapter 25. Do you see the cultivator city outside the forest? There is a transportation array to the Black Heaven sect in the city. Chichinyu pointed to the city in front of them, with the beast core and the elixirs Bai Hao had given her. Her injuries were almost healed. She immediately left the dangerous forest, intending to return directly to Mingyin Mountain, but the news Bai Hao brought made her change her mind. It was obviously not suitable to bring Shening along. However, with her heaven-defying sense of direction, she could not bear to leave her behind. So she changed directions at the last minute and came to the vicinity of this immortal city. Alright, go on. You can enter the city if you go straight. Once you enter the city, follow the main street to the end and turn right. You will see the transportation array. Don't. Wait, where are you going? I said go straight. Is that straight? No, why are you going to the right? The city gate is over there. Come back. Looking at the person who could not tell which direction to go after going around a tree, Chichinyu could not help but pull her back. Are you blind? Hey, look at the road. Do you want to go back or not? I guess. Shening tilted her head, still looking as carefree as ever. Chichinyu's mouth twitched. What the hell? Didn't they say that immortal sect disciples valued their sex the most? Wake up and look at the road, Chichinyu instructed again. After some thought, she took out a small bag of spirit stones from her storage bag and handed it to Shening. Take these and be careful on the road. Don't be silly and get cheated by others. Shening glanced at the heavy bag in her hands. Had she been smashed with money? I have important matters to attend to. I can't bring a burden like you along. We'll part ways here. Be careful. Why did she feel like she had accepted a breakup fee? She looked up at the person in front of her. Are you going to kill that gone guy? Yes, I'm going to. Chichinyu stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening. How did you know? I can tell. Ever since that pervert revealed the news, she had not been able to focus on roasting the chicken these few days. Her skills had dropped greatly. That's right. I am indeed going to Sword Comprehension Peak. Her eyes darkened, and she clenched her fists. After a long while, she finally suppressed the violence that was about to surge from the bottom of her heart. She smiled at her. Since you can guess all this, you should know that I might not be able to come back. You take care. Do you need help? Shening suddenly asked. She laughed. Help me? You're just a disciple of a sect, and you want to help a fiendish cultivator deal with a cultivator from a righteous sect? Sure. After all, he had received the money. Chichinyu was taken aback. It was only then that she realized that she was serious. Her eyes darkened. Why? I've only known you for a few days, and you don't even know what grudges I have with that person. Yet you choose to help me? After all, they had been eating roast chicken together for so many days. Grudges and whatnot, I can roughly guess. She suddenly sat down on a withered tree beside her. Your fiendish cultivation has something to do with him, right? Using your brain was so troublesome. Chichinyu's expression darkened. She clenched her fists several times, as if she was desperately trying to suppress something. After a long while, she took a deep breath and glanced at Shening. She seemed to be trying to squeeze out a smile, but the corners of her mouth were full of bitterness. It seems that these few days, you were not just focused on eating chicken. You listened to everything I said. Chichinyu sat down beside her. Her eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of dust, as if she was looking forward, but without focus. That's right. When my golden core was shattered, I was imprisoned in a secret chamber by Yu Ding as a human cauldron. Later, I was given to others like a toy. It was all thanks to this person. The funny thing is, Chichinyu paused, and her voice became even lower, as if she was gritting her teeth. He is the master who single-handedly brought me onto the path of immortality and taught me cultivation. She deliberately emphasized the last two words. Her eyes instantly turned red, and her face was full of a mocking smile. She said word by word, purine body. Just because he discovered that I had a so-called purine body, this master of mine destroyed 100 years of my cultivation and personally sent me to someone else's bed, watching me suffer humiliation for decades. If she had not hardened her heart to become a fiendish cultivator, perhaps she would still be in that hell now. I have been looking for him for hundreds of years, just to repay his master's kindness. Her expression became more and more solemn, as if she was immersed in something. A crazed look slowly appeared in her eyes. All these years, I've killed all the people who humiliated me back then, but I couldn't find him. For 100 years, I've been thinking day and night, if one day. Let's go. Shening suddenly spoke, interrupting her from her crazed thoughts. She stood up and said lazily, I'll help you kill him. Qingyu was stunned, and her eyes softened for a moment. After a while she burst out laughing. You? Forget it. Why don't you save your little life for a few more roasted pigs? She was just a mortal, what could she do? What kind of place is Sword Comprehension Peak? It is the sacred land of the Great Void Sect, where soul formation supremacies go into seclusion. Not to mention that you are just a mortal. Even a nascent soul cultivator does not have the right to enter. It was said that Sword Comprehension Peak was built by a top sect in the Upper Azure world, and was the only place from the Middle Azure world to the Upper Azure world. That is why among the 3 sects and 6 schools, only soul formation supremacies have the Jade token to enter, she said seriously. Unless you have the Jade token otherwise. Are you talking about this? Shening suddenly took out a white Jade token with the word enlightenment written on it. You. How did you get this? Qiqingyu's eyes widened. Oh, it was temporarily, given to me by a fellow villager. The temporary chef had forgotten to take it back when he was showing it off to her. Qiqingyu took it in disbelief and flipped it to the left. The Jade token? It really was the Jade token of Sword Comprehension Peak. She probed it with her spirit chi, and vaguely saw the word Lone Moon on it. But this Jade token recognizes its owner. Without the owner's spirit artifact, it still cannot be activated. Is it this? She suddenly took out a white jade flute. Qiqingyu. The true knowledge stone in front of Sword Comprehension Peak can recognize the intrinsic Dharma artifact of a soul formation supremacy. Will this work? She took out a fan. Qiqingyu. After a long time, for all. Flip's table. How many things have you taken from him? Can I ask a question? What enmity do you have with this supremacy Lone Moon? Why is his intrinsic Dharma artifact with you? Based on the way you took it, you might as well call the person over. I see. Shening nodded, and turned to look behind her. What are you trying to do? Wait. The next moment, Shen Ying's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared on the spot. She suddenly had a bad feeling 3 minutes later. The person you want. A man dressed in blue and white robes was pushed in front of her. Qiqingyu. Lone Moon. This works too. Chapter 26. I Ching and Lone Moon had been searching for days in this forest where the spirit chi was thin. They had followed the aura of the fiendish cultivator all the way here. They had sensed the fiendish cultivator's location several times, but they just could not find him. They had searched the entire forest several times without finding anything. Lone Moon was beginning to suspect that the fiendish cultivator had deliberately set up a diversion array. He was just about to leave when Shening, whom he had been searching for a long time, suddenly appeared in front of him without warning. Master! I Ching was delighted. You didn't. Before he could finish speaking, Shening grabbed Lone Moon's collar and said, Do me a favor. She disappeared again. Before Lone Moon could react, he was dragged away. In the next moment he was pushed in front of a woman. She was a nascent soul cultivator with a beauty that could cause the downfall of countries. However, her entire body was overflowing with yin qi. Fiendish cultivator. Lone Moon took a step back warily. He lowered his voice and said, Shening, what are you doing? He turned to see that she was holding a fan-shaped weapon that looked very familiar. My intrinsic Dharma artifact. Why was it in the hands of a fiendish cultivator? Wait, the flute and the jade pendant also looked a little familiar. He subconsciously reached into the storage bag beside him. Holy shit, why are they in your hands? When did he get them? He had no recollection of them at all. I gave them to you, Shening replied. You? Lone Moon turned to look at her as if he had seen a ghost. Are you crazy? Why did you take my intrinsic Dharma artifact for no reason? And why did she give it to a fiendish cultivator to play with? What happened to the friendship between fellow countrymen? Who took yours? Shenning glared at him. You forgot to keep it when you were showing it off. That's why I picked it up. Was there such a thing? He thought about it carefully. He had indeed introduced her to all kinds of weapons before. Could it be that time? But he was not a forgetful person in the past. Why did he forget to keep it after showing it to her? Since this belongs to supremacy, then return it to its original owner. It was only then that Qi recovered from the shock of Shun, in pulling a soul formation supremacy back. She hurriedly returned the things in her hands, feeling a little nervous. Although Shining had good intentions, she was a fiendish cultivator after all. If the other party had any ill intentions, she would not be able to escape from a soul formation supremacy. Lone Moon received his own Dharma artifact and tested it suspiciously. He kept it after confirming that there were no problems. There were more and more questions in his heart. Who was this devil cultivator? Why would Shining help her? Just as she was about to ask, I Ching had already caught up. Master! He hurriedly flew down and turned to look at Qi. His eyes hardened, but he did not attack her directly. Instead, he quickly walked over to Shining. It was my negligence that caused Master to suffer such a calamity. Are you all right? I'm fine. I have something to do. Lone Moon rolled his eyes and gripped the Dharma artifact that he had lost and regained. Shining, what exactly is going on? Do you know how long we've been looking for you? I know. Shining nodded. I saw you guys walking around the other side of the river for 7 or 8 days. The other side of the river? Holy shit. Lone Moon immediately exploded. Damn it, why didn't you call us when you saw us? I called you, but you didn't hear me. She put on an innocent face. After all, there was a river between them. Besides, you didn't call me. How would I know that you were looking for me? Lone Moon and I Ching. All of a sudden, he wanted to check if he was blind. Oh yes, I left a chicken by the river for you. Did you see it? She was a good boss. Lone Moon and I Ching. So the 5th level spirit beast on the other side of the river was left by her? He had thought that it was some idiot who didn't take the spirit beast with him after hunting it. The point was, if you could leave a chicken behind, would you die if you left a note? Alright, everything is here. It's getting late, let's go. Shining nudged Qi and urged, we can fly now. Qi did not react for a moment and was stunned. Go. To where? I Ching, who was beside her, obediently summoned his spirit sword and stretched out his hand. Master, your disciple will give you a lift. Thank you. Shining jumped onto the sword and said to Qi, Sister, lead the way. Oh. Qi looked confused as she summoned her flying sword and flew up. Lone Moon. Wait a minute. Was he the only one who didn't know what was going on? Hey, where are you going? Why didn't anyone explain? What was the relationship between Shining and the fiendish cultivator? And what did she mean by everything was here? Who the hell is your thing, hey? For all. Late at night. After flying for an entire day, the 3 of them stopped to rest. You really want to go to Sword Comprehension Peak? Lone Moon, who had heard everything along the way, glanced at the person who was meditating on the other side of the bonfire. He turned to Shining and asked. Yes. What else? Lone Moon looked at her in surprise. I couldn't tell that you were such a righteous person. She was actually not lazy. This was not her style at all. Shining narrowed her eyes. I hate scum. Then how can you be sure that what she said is true? Lone Moon glanced at her and said in a low voice. Don't forget, she also killed Perfected Yuding of my sect. I'm not sure. Shining turned to look at him. That's why I want to go. Qiqing's experience was indeed tragic. So tragic that anyone would feel sympathy for her. But they could not just listen to one person. Whether it was true or false, they would naturally find out when they went to Sword Comprehension Peak. You want to find her master and confront him? Yes. Since he had already interfered, he would investigate clearly. It's no use. Lone Moon sighed. Even if what she said is true, and that master of hers really did such a thing, so what? She won't gain anything from going to Sword Comprehension Peak, and the Grand Vacuity sect will not punish that gone fellow. She might even lose her life there. What do you mean? Shining turned to look at him with some surprise. Does this world condone rapists? Not really. Lone Moon looked a little awkward. He exchanged a look with I Ching, who had the same expression on his face. For a moment he did not know how to explain. After a while he said in a low voice, "Because she has a purine body." And then, Lone Moon's expression became even more conflicted. "Shening, do you know what a human furnace is?" She was silent for a while, then nodded. "I can guess. Some women with poor spirit roots, or who have no hope of becoming immortals, but are rather pretty, are willing to become human furnaces in order to protect themselves. Below high-level cultivators, they will use their own cultivation to allow others to pluck them." His face was full of awkwardness, as if it was difficult for him to say it out loud. Although the dual cultivation plucking technique is not a publicly known sorcery, it is indeed beneficial to one's cultivation. However, it was indeed beneficial to one's cultivation. Therefore, it was very common for various sects and clans to raise human furnaces. Most cultivators above the golden core stage have this habit. Disguised prostitution. You mean that this world does not forbid prostitution? You can say that. He nodded. What's the deal with the purine body? The dual cultivation technique is considered unorthodox. Because everyone's spirit roots and spirit chi are different. The spirit chi that is plucked is modeled, and it takes time to combine and use it. He looked at the person opposite him. But the purine body has the ability to combine spirit chi. With such a person, the speed of dual cultivation is more than 10 times faster than others. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. And then, the purine body is extremely rare. There may not even be one in 10 million years, Lone Moon continued. In the Middle Azure world, they are seen as natural human furnaces. Once they appear, all sects will fight for them, so no one will ask if they are willing? Scum. Chapter 27. Grand Vacuity Sect. Surrounded by mountains, dozens of floating peaks hung high in the air, surrounded by immortal chi, like a fairyland. And not far to the right of the floating peak, a completely different mountain floated above the other peaks. That mountain was dozens of times smaller than the other floating peaks, but it was wrapped in a layer of transparent barrier, and on the top of the floating peak, there was a beam of light that reached the sky. Sword Comprehension Peak is in front. Lone Moon pointed at the floating peak wrapped in a transparent ball and frowned. He still looked at Shunning disapprovingly and said, "Although I haven't heard of any soul formation cultivators entering the peak recently, there are 3 soul formation supremacies guarding the passageway to the Upper Azure world in Sword Comprehension Peak. Once you enter the peak, you will be detected by them. You have to think carefully. Are you sure you want to barge in now?" This was equivalent to making enemies with 3 soul formation supremacies at the same time. Shening looked up and was about to reply, but I Ching beside her spoke first. "Master, you can't." Lone Moon was delighted. There were indeed people who understood. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. As expected of a sword immortal, quickly persuade that cheap master of yours. I Ching turned and bowed to Shening, saying with a serious face, "Master, it's almost noon now, you haven't had lunch yet." "What? That's right." Shening nodded in agreement. "Only when you're full will you have the energy to fight. Your disciple will go find some food for you now, and start the fire to cook." "And thank you. Master, please wait here for a while. It will be ready soon." "Lone Moon. Where's my knife?" "Oh, you 5 winky face, oh come back here." Lone Moon grabbed a certain diehard fan, full of sarcasm suddenly gushing out. "Is this the time to find food? Do you think this is a vacation? If you're going to help, can you at least do it properly? Isn't that girl your friend? But I'll get hungry if I don't eat." "Master is right. Can't you just bear with it? Starving hurts the stomach." "Master is right. I came out in a hurry this time, and didn't bring food. Do you have it?" Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He really did have it. Gritting his teeth, he took out a stack of pastries from the storage bag beside him. "Here, you didn't finish them last time, so I put them away for you. Eat, 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 eat until you die." "Why is there only osmanthus cake? I remember that I didn't finish the last time I ate the Little Heaven crisp cake, lotus pancake, and Korean fish slices." "Master, you forgot about the golden milk biscuit," I Ching immediately added. Are you two master and disciple here to collect a debt? Can't you King leave some for me? You can't even remember a person's name. How can you remember this kind of thing so clearly? Here. I'll return them all to you. Are you satisfied now? Oh, thanks. Master, why don't I go hunt a few more spirit beasts? Shut up, Qingyu, who had been watching the entire time. Could he really take revenge with these people? Although Sword Comprehension Peak belonged to the Grand Vacuity sect, it was a Dao field for soul formation cultivators. Moreover, there was a passageway leading to the Upper Azure world. On the other hand, ordinary disciples rarely came here. Finally, after eating and drinking to their heart's content, the group arrived at the bottom of Sword Comprehension Peak without much effort, and without alerting the Grand Vacuity sect. Compared to what it looked like from the outside, the spirit chi of the entire peak was much denser. They could even faintly see a floating palace at the top of the mountain. This is as far as I can send you. Lone Moon looked up at the peak and said, If you go any further, you will be discovered. I am a disciple of the Black Heaven sect after all. Most people in the Grand Vacuity sect have seen me before. It would not be appropriate for me to follow you up. If he was discovered, it would be a problem between the two sections. Thank you for your help, Supremacy. Qingyu stepped forward and bowed seriously. You don't have to thank me. I'm not helping you. Lone Moon turned and glared at her. He continued, This is an exception. You are a fiendish cultivator after all. If it were any other day, I would not have shown mercy. What's more, this matter has not been settled yet. Qingyu clenched her fists by her side. I understand what supremacy means. Hey foodie. Lone Moon ignored her. Instead, he nudged Shen-Ying and said, I have to make a trip to the Grand Vacuity sect and delay those old fellows. I will try my best not to let them find out that someone has entered Sword Comprehension Peak. You guys better hurry up. All right. Although this Sword Comprehension Peak is not big, it is not easy to find someone. You better split up. Oh yes. He turned to look at Qingyu. What does the person you were talking about look like? Do you have an image? Frowning, Qingyu took out a round white stone and conjured a hand seal. Immediately, the image of a man appeared on the stone. He was dressed in white and looked well-mannered, like a gentleman. Lone Moon took the round stone from her hand and conjured a hand seal. He took out a few talismans and said, Take this. This is a tracking talisman. I have already locked onto this person's aura. It will be easier for you to use this later. With that said, he added worriedly, Remember, do not expose your identity as a disciple of the Black Heaven sect. I do not want to be accused of colluding with a fiendish cultivator. Shen-Ying looked up, then at the talismans he was handing over. She shook her head and stuffed them back. There's no need. No need. Lone Moon glared at her. Can you find someone with just your eyes? Do you think that gone guy is an idiot who would jump out of his own accord for you to beat up? Just as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly sounded from behind him. Who are you? How dare you trespass on Sword Comprehension Peak? Lone Moon paused and turned to look at the person who had suddenly appeared behind him. He stared blankly at the image on the round stone, then lowered his head again and looked again. Holy shit, this is possible. He really was an idiot. Gonzirwei. Qingyu did not expect to find someone so quickly. Her eyes turned red as she stared at the person opposite her. It's been 500 years. Do you still recognize me? That person paused, and then looked at the person in the middle. His eyes narrowed, and a trace of panic flashed across his face. You are Qingyu? You. Why are you here? Qingyu snorted, her eyes filled with hatred. Of course you don't want me to be here. It's been 500 years. I've been looking for you for 500 years. I did not expect you to be hiding here. Today I'll settle the scores with you. Qingyu, calm down. I had no choice back then. You can't blame me for this. Gonzirwei took a step back and explained even more frantically. I was only a golden core cultivator back then. Perfected Yu Ding wanted you. What could I do? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for having a purine body. Had no choice. Qingyu's face was full of mockery. Then when I risked my life to escape back then, you personally crippled my 100 years of cultivation. and deliberately threw me into the Mingyin Mountain Fiend Cave to be humiliated. Was that also because you had no choice? Chapter 28. Gonzirwe's face paled. He looked guilty as if he had been exposed. His originally decent face twisted, as if he could not be bothered to pretend anymore. He glared at Qi Qingyu. So what if I did it on purpose? I was the one who taught you how to cultivate. Why can't I take it back? Qi Qingyu clenched her fists so tightly that blood started to seep out of her palms. Gonzirwe's gaze became sharper and sharper, with a hint of madness. I accepted you as my disciple out of kindness, but you used some tricks to dream of forming your nascent soul within 100 years. I spent 300 years to reach the perfected golden core stage. What right do you have to be ahead of me? Lomoon frowned. So he was just jealous. Jealous that his disciple was too powerful and had surpassed master. That was why he wanted to destroy her. This person must be crazy. At first, I just wanted to destroy your cultivation. The more he spoke, the fiercer he became. He looked as if he wanted to peel off a layer of skin from the person in front of him. But I did not expect you to go and seduce you, Ding. Who do you think you are? You are just a beggar that I picked up. You are not fit to stay by his side. Huh. There's a story. Do you know why I named you Qingyu? Qingyu. Isn't it what a purine body like you should be receiving? You knew from the start that I had a purine body. So what if I knew? You were the human cauldron that I prepared for you, Ding. I taught you to cultivate so that spirit qi could be absorbed more easily. You should have just been a human cauldron and helped him to improve his cultivation. But you made him fall in love with you. He actually wanted to become your Tao companion. His gaze became even crazier. Even the words that came out of his mouth seemed to be said through gritted teeth. I accompanied him for so many years. What right do you have to become his Tao companion? A purine body is born to be used by thousands of people. You are only fit to breathe under other people's bodies. I just wanted you to return to your original fate. What's wrong with that? Shening. Damn gay. Lomoon. Damn gay. They spoke in unison. I Ching. Huh. What did they mean? Why was he the only one who did not understand? So you planned to destroy me from the start. Destroy you? Speaking of which, isn't it because I sent you to the Mingyin Mountain that you've reached the nascent soul stage? Shouldn't you be thanking me? You, stop. Don't be noisy. Shening took a step forward and looked back and forth between the two of them. With a serious expression, she said, We're both adults. What can't we just stop and have a good fight to solve it? Could they not just talk? Qi Qingyu stared blankly for a moment, then seemed to recall something. She summoned her weapon and charged forward. She seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. She no longer held back, and the yin energy in her body surged. A large patch of sword light greeted the people on the other side. Lomoon frowned. Things were very clear now. Shening was right. That fiendish cultivator did not lie. This Gonzirwe was indeed the scum of the scum. After thinking for a while, he formed a seal and set up a formation, temporarily isolating this area to prevent others from discovering him. However, this wouldn't last long. Qi Qingyu and Gonzirwe were both nascent soul cultivators. Their cultivation levels were about the same. In addition, Qi Qingyu had been injured earlier. She should not have been able to defeat her opponent. However, she could not withstand her reckless fighting style. She had completely given up on defense and was only focused on revenge. What's more, fiendish cultivators had more tricks up their sleeves than immortal cultivators. In a short while, Gonzirwe was losing ground. He was being forced into a corner. This could not go on. Lomoon's expression darkened. Just as he was about to activate his spirit qi to end the battle quickly, Qi Qingyu suddenly shouted, Don't come over. She spat out a mouthful of blood and glared at the person on the other side, who was also in a sorry state. Thank you for your kindness, but I want to take revenge with my own hands. With that said, she attacked again. Lomoon's foot paused for a moment, but he retracted it after a while. Gonzirwe's expression grew uglier and uglier. Qi Qingyu was clearly thinking of perishing together with him. No, he could not die here. He had gone through so much to form his nascent soul. Qi Qingyu, don't forget that this is Sword Comprehension Peak. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to leave this place. He threatened loudly. The supremacies on the mountain will discover this place soon. I never intended to leave this place alive. She was completely unaffected by his threat. Her attacks became more and more fierce. We can't stay here any longer. Lone Moon frowned. The Grand Vacuity sect will discover this place sooner or later. I have to go out and fool them. As for those people on the mountain, Shening you. Shening. Where's Shening? I Ching was also stunned. He turned around and looked around, only to find that the person who had been standing beside him had disappeared. Holy shit. When did she leave? Sword Comprehension Peak. 3 soul formation supremacies were sitting in a circle in the Grand Hall. Between the 3 of them, a beam of white light shot up into the sky. Within the light, there were faint shadows of immortal mountains and auspicious clouds. This was the only passageway from the Middle Azure world to the Upper Azure world. Suddenly one of them opened his eyes. Just now, someone used the Jade token of Sword Comprehension Peak. Really? The person beside him also opened his eyes. Senior brother Qing Yin. Did you sense who it was? Not yet. Qing Yin shook his head. But since he came in, he will come up the mountain soon. We'll know then. Sigh. Another soul formation supremacy sighed. Nowadays, there are fewer and fewer soul formation cultivators in the Middle Azure world. It's been almost 100 years since someone was willing to ascend to the Upper Azure world from here. Now that the spirit chi is thin, it's normal for this to happen. Qing Yin also sighed. Anyway, our mission is to bring fated people to the Upper Azure world. That would be considered as fulfilling the Master's instructions. It doesn't matter how many people there are. It's quality, not quantity. If it's someone with mediocre qualifications, I'm sure the Master will not be satisfied. Why should I be so anxious? But the 3 of us have been guarding this place for hundreds of years. Who knows how long more we have to guard this place? When will the Master allow us to go back? That's right. I've had enough of this rundown place. The spirit chi is thin, and the resources are scarce. If we continue to waste our lives like this, I'm afraid we won't have any hope of ascending to immortality. That's right, it's just a small Middle Azure world. Why make the 3 of us guard this place together? The resources we receive are so little, and our cultivation has been stagnant for so long. We might be laughed at when we go back. Forget it, it's the Master's orders after all. What can we do? As long as we can send a few people with good qualifications to the Upper Azure world, I'm sure the Master will allow us to go back. Sigh, I just hope that this time. He suddenly stopped mid-sentence, and his eyes widened. Why do I feel the aura of a fiendish cultivator at the foot of the mountain? The other 2 sensed carefully and were shocked as well. It's indeed the yin chi of a fiendish cultivator. Could it be that a fiendish cultivator took the opportunity to break in? I wonder who it is this time. It's me. Just as they finished speaking, a voice rang out beside them. The 3 of them jumped in fright and turned to look. Only then did they realize that there was a girl in green, sitting beside Qing Yin. She was sitting cross-legged like them, one hand supporting her chin, as she looked at them with a bored expression. Who are you? Qing Yin jumped up and took a few steps back. They had not even noticed that there was someone else beside them. When exactly did you sit here? Since you guys complained about how much work you had, and how you didn't get a commission. She shrugged and waved at the 3 people, who were retreating further and further away. What are you afraid of? I'm not your boss. My name is Shening. Come sit. I have something to ask you. The 3 of them became even more wary. This person had been sitting beside them for so long without making a sound. She was definitely not simple. Yet no matter how hard they tried, they could not see through her cultivation. Come and sit. It's tiring to stand and talk. As she spoke, she even patted the spot beside her. The 3 of them took another step back. We're waiting. What if we don't sit? Shening paused. Her eyes narrowed, and she suddenly cupped her fists. Then just kneel down and talk. Chapter 29. By the time Lone Moon returned, Chi Chingyu's side was already done. The previously arrogant Gonzirwei was no longer breathing. Chi Chingyu was also covered in wounds. She did what she said she would. She took revenge on her own with a burst of anger, not asking for the slightest help from others. When the other party took his last breath, her already tottering body seemed to finally relax. She directly fell to the ground, and the blood-stained sword in her hand also fell to the ground. Oh, it's done. Shen Ying, who had just returned, nudged the person beside her and said suddenly, "Holy shit." Lone Moon jumped and took a step back. "Where did you go just now?" "I went up the mountain." Shen Ying pointed to the top of the mountain. Lone Moon paused and suddenly thought of something. The corner of his mouth twitched. For some reason, he did not want to ask her what she had done. What did the Grand Void Sect send out? I Ching looked outside the mountain and asked. From the beginning, he had sensed a lot of noise coming from outside Sword Comprehension Peak. "Oh, I told their sect master that they disappeared after chasing the fiendish cultivator all the way here. They suspect that a fiendish cultivator spy has infiltrated the Grand Void Sect," Lone Moon said seriously. "They are now busy gathering disciples to find a spy, so no one will come to Sword Comprehension Peak for the time being. While there is no one at the foot of the mountain, we will sneak out later." "You lied to them?" Shen Ying looked up at him. Even I Ching turned his head in surprise. "I didn't expect you to be such a supremacy. Why are you looking at me like that?" He rolled his eyes at the two of them. "Am I not wiping your ass for you? No matter what, we are all from the Black Heaven sect. Can't we make up a reason to come to someone else's mountain to find trouble?" With that said, he snorted and turned to look at the person who was still lying on the ground, covered in blood. He could not help but frown. On the other hand, Chi Qingyu suddenly picked up the sword on the ground and struggled to stand up with the help of the sword hilt. She staggered towards them, and with every step she took, the grass beneath her feet was stained with blood. After much difficulty, she walked to a position 5 steps away from them and knelt down. "Many thanks to the 3 of you for helping me take my revenge." She raised her head and smiled at them as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted from her shoulders. "I have no more regrets in this life. I'm willing to follow the Venerable One back to the Black Heaven sect and await my judgment. No matter how your sect deals with it, Chi Qingyu will have no complaints." At the end of the day, she was a demonic cultivator. Good and evil could not coexist with each other. Moreover, she had killed a hall master of the Black Heaven sect. No matter what the reason was, as righteous cultivators, they had to capture her and bring her back. Her entire life had been ruined by celestial cultivators, and she had suffered all sorts of humiliation. That was why she had abandoned her Tao and entered the demonic path. She hadn't expected that in the end, the one who had helped her was also a celestial cultivator. All these years, she had lived to seek revenge on Gonzirwei. She knew very well that as long as Gonzirwei was at Sword Comprehension Peak, she would not have the chance to kill him. If not for Shen Ying, she might not even be able to take one step into Sword Comprehension Peak. Actually, from the moment she set off for Sword Comprehension Peak, she did not plan to return alive. Sword Cultivator I Ching aside, Lone Moon was a soul formation supremacy of Black Heaven sect. They had no reason to let her off. It was just that she would not have the chance to return the favor to Shen Ying. At the thought of this, she looked up at Shen Ying, who was still distracted and seemed to be completely out of the situation. For the first time in hundreds of years, she felt a warm feeling in her heart. If only they had met earlier. "Supremacy, please deal with me." Shen Ying had already helped her so much, so she must not make things difficult for her. She took a deep breath and cupped her fists with difficulty. Her expression was resolute, as if she was ready to die. Lone Moon's brows tightened and relaxed as he looked at the demonic cultivator in front of him, who was on her last breath. As a righteous cultivator, he should have captured her from the beginning and thrown her back to Shichio to deal with. He had even been inexplicably dragged to Sword Comprehension Peak by Shen Ying. He had also intended to wait until the matter was settled before taking action. But when she obediently surrendered herself to the captivity, he suddenly felt that this matter was a little troublesome. He actually could not bear to do it. It was all Shen Ying's fault. Besides, why did she let him deal with her? Why didn't she go and ask that foodie? I came out this time to find someone, not to exterminate demons." He snorted coldly and turned his head away. "Supremacy?" Chi Qingyu was shocked. She looked up in disbelief. He was planning to let her go. I have so many things to do every day. I don't have time to care about your business. He glared at her. However, if you dare to hurt the innocent in the future, I will not be merciful. Qingyu was stunned. Her expression changed several times. Her eyes were watery as she bowed deeply to him. Thank you, Supremacy. Qingyu will remember. Lone Moon turned to fly on his sword, but he met two pairs of meaningful eyes. What are you looking at? He suddenly felt his heart clench. He turned and glared back. Do you have any objections to the way I handled this? No. Shunning shook her head. Then why aren't you leaving? Are you waiting to be caught? He looked even more ferocious. Isn't this all because of you? If not for the fact that we are from the same hometown, do you think I want to meddle in this matter? He was a dignified soul formation supremacy of Black Heaven sect. It was not easy for him to abuse his authority. Oh, your head. Hurry up and leave. Oh, 3 days later. Shining, what did you do at Sword Comprehension Peak that day? Lone Moon could not help but ask. After all, Qingyu had been dealing with Gonzirwei for a long time. She was also a fiendish cultivator. There were 3 soul formation cultivators on the mountain. It was impossible that none of them had noticed her. Yet from beginning to end, she did not appear at all. I asked about something. Shining replied lazily. About Gonzirwei? He paused. What did you find out? Shining glanced at him and changed to a more comfortable position. She continued to stand. That gone. Gonzirwei. Oh, he did not die unjustly. Chi, roasted chicken gal. Do you only King remember roasted chicken? She was not the first human cauldron that Gonzirwei found for Yuding. I heard that he had many disciples in the past, all female, but none of them lived long. Later, roasted chicken gal turned into a demon and formed a nascent soul. She sent her fiendish cultivators to look for him. He realized that there was danger, so he hid in Sword Comprehension Peak. In that case, he indeed deserved to die. Lone Moon frowned. But why was he at Sword Comprehension Peak? Although it was common to raise human cauldrons in the Middle Azure world, it was too evil to specially take in disciples and train them into human cauldrons. His disciples could not all have purine bodies. The 3 sects and 6 schools would not allow such behavior. Not to mention protecting him. The old men said that he was related to someone in the Upper Azure world. That was why they made an exception and let him in. Nominally, he was a disciple guarding Sword Comprehension Peak. Once he reached the soul formation stage, he could directly go to the Upper Azure world. Upper Azure world. Lone Moon was shocked. No wonder he formed his nascent soul despite his ordinary aptitude. So it has something to do with the Upper Azure world. Shunning suddenly looked up and gave him a meaningful look. You believe me? Ah, what did she mean? Yuding. She suddenly said a name. Lone Moon was stunned. Suddenly he thought of something. His eyes widened. You mean? Before Shunning could answer, he stood up, turned around and flew towards Elixir Peak in the direction of Jade Tripod. Half an hour later, he returned with a complicated look on his face. He held a few bottles and jars in his hands. He placed them on the table in front of Shunning, his brows furrowed. You guessed right. The thing that really has something to do with the Upper Azure world is Yuding. Chapter 30. Lone Moon found a secret chamber on Elixir Peak. It was so well hidden that he would not have found it if he was not proficient in array formations. However, that secret room was just an ordinary alchemy room. As the hall master of Elixir Peak, Yuding was in charge of the entire Elixir Peak. He was an 8th-stage alchemist, and more than 90% of the elixirs in Black Heaven sect came from Elixir Peak. As the hall master, it was normal for him to open the furnace to refine elixirs. There was no need for such a secret chamber. Lone Moon was puzzled until he saw the bottles of elixirs that had not been put away in time. Among those elixirs, there were level advancement elixirs. These elixirs were not limited by the user's cultivation level, and could be used by high-level cultivators, even soul formation cultivators. Eating these elixirs could directly increase one's cultivation level. It was just that the ingredients were extremely rare, and many of them had long gone extinct in the Azure world. There was no way to refine them, but there was more than one bottle in Yuding's secret chamber. unless he poured out one of the elixirs and released his divine perception. Indeed, there was a faint black chi lingering around the elixir. It was rumored that there was an extremely sinister method to refine the body of a living cultivator into elixirs. The elixirs could preserve 10% of the cultivator's cultivation level when they were alive. Eating it could directly increase one's cultivation level. But this method was extremely troublesome. No cultivator would want their cultivation level to be stolen. So even if the elixir was formed, the violent spirit chi contained in the elixir could very likely backfire on the person who consumed it. Unless the person being refined had an extremely gentle attribute of spiritual chi. For example, a water or wood spirit root. Coincidentally, a water or wood spirit root was also recognized as the most suitable person to use as a human furnace. Yu Ding must have built a secret chamber to hide the fact that he had been using living people to refine elixirs. And his elixir refining ingredients were the human furnaces that Gon Zirwei had given him. No wonder there was such a heavy grievance in these elixirs. They had been plucked when they were alive and refined into elixirs before they died. Lone Moon could not help but shudder. Just looking at the number of elixirs, who knew how many people had died in their hands? The strange thing was that Yu Ding's cultivation level had not increased after so many years. It was obvious that he had not touched these elixirs. This meant that there were other people above him. Combined with what Shening had said before, the people behind them were definitely from the Upper Azure world. At the thought of this, Lone Moon was shocked. Now that Yu Ding was dead, would the person behind him directly target Black Heaven sect? There were countless high-level cultivators in the Upper Azure world. Although the Black Heaven sect was the top sect in the Middle Azure world, it was nothing compared to the Upper Azure world. But he immediately denied this idea. No way. The Upper Azure world could not wait to cover up the act of refining elixirs with a living person. Why would they jump out and admit to it? Gon Zirwei hiding in Sword Comprehension Peak, instead of escaping to the Upper Azure world, was proof enough. The people behind them were probably not people who could do whatever they wanted in the Upper Azure world. Although Yu Ding had committed a heinous crime, the key point was that no one knew that he was from the Upper Azure world after so many years in the Black Heaven sect. The reason he hid his identity was probably not as simple as helping the people of the Upper Realm to refine pills. There must be some other purpose. What were the people from the Upper Azure world trying to do? He could not help but think of the Grand Vacuity sect. Everyone knew that although the Grand Vacuity sect was one of the 3 sects and 6 schools, it was actually just a puppet of the Upper Azure world. Did they want the Black Heaven sect to become the second Grand Vacuity sect? He couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Fortunately, he had discovered it in time. He didn't expect that a fiendish cultivator would be involved in so many things. At first, they thought that Shening was just taking pity on the fiendish cultivator and dragging them along. Who would have thought that there would be such a big surprise hidden behind? Shening usually looked like an unreliable person, but her thoughts were so sharp and to the point. Shening, could it be that you already guessed that there was something wrong with this? For the sake of Black Heaven sect, where is he? Before he could finish his sentence, he realized that the person who had been sitting in front of him had returned to his room and was holding a green leaf with a look of disgust. Chef, what is this thing that smells like coriander? Melancholy for seasoning. Don't put it next time. I hate coriander. Yes, master. No problem, master. Lone Moon. King retard. Straight face. He was really blind to think that such a foodie was someone who cared about the big picture. Also, Sword Immortal, have you calmly accepted the title of chef? Do you have to be so fast? For all? Lone Moon immediately told Sect Master Shiqiu about Yu Ding. Shiqiu was also frightened. Fortunately, he had discovered it in time, and it didn't cause any big trouble. But after all, this was the Upper Azure world. In addition, they didn't know who the mastermind was. They could only swallow this loss and pretend that nothing had happened. It was just that the pursuit of Qi Qingyu had finally stopped. Here to freeload again? Shening glanced at this fellow who had nothing better to do and came to chat all day. She waved her hand and said, "It's not mealtime yet. Chef isn't back yet. Who wants to freeload from you?" Lone Moon glared at her. I've long abstained from food. It's been so long and I haven't eaten a single drop of your rice. I have. The corner of Lomun's mouth twitched. He suddenly remembered something. Pastries don't count as rice. He hadn't eaten for a long time, and had a few bites. Did he have to remember it for so long? I'm just informing you that your disciple probably won't be able to make it back in time to cook today. Sect Master is discussing with him about experiential training. Experiential training? Shening was stunned. Lomun brushed his robes and sat opposite her. He said with a hint of schadenfreude. Every year at this time, disciples below the Golden Core level have to go out in batches for experiential training to improve their combat strength. Most of the time, it's to complete some missions that can't be handled in the mortal world, or subdue some demon beasts that cause trouble. It's like a group exercise. What does it have to do with Chef? Isn't he a nascent soul cultivator? It doesn't have anything to do with him. Lomun continued. In the past, only one Golden Core cultivator was needed to lead the team to ensure the safety of the disciples. But this time, the sect received a request for help. There seems to be a powerful demon in the south. It's said that it's at the 9th level. Ordinary Golden Core cultivators can't deal with it at all. And the various hall masters are busy investigating the incident with Yuding, and are not in the sect. That's why Shichio thought of your chef. Oh, forcibly expropriated? How long will the experiential training take? Not necessarily. At least 3 to 4 months. At most, it's hard to say for half a year to a year. A year? The corner of Shenying's mouth twitched. A formula suddenly appeared in her mind. Experiential training equals no chef equals no one to cook equals about to run out of food. She turned to look at Lomun beside her. It was equivalent to a year of pig's feed. No way. What's with that look? Lomun frowned. Why did he feel that she was scolding him in her heart? This has nothing to do with me. It's the sex arrangement. Besides, he's a guest elder. Bringing disciples for experiential training is... Before he could finish, Shening suddenly stood up and said with a serious face, Are family members allowed for experiential training? Chapter 31. Shening caught up with I Ching at the entrance of the Black Heaven sect. Master, are you really coming along? He was surprised by Shenying's sudden decision. Cough, you're my chef disciple. Shening patted his shoulder and said earnestly, It's normal to worry about you since you're going to train. But this isn't my training. This was just a simple sect mission. He only needed to send the disciples to the designated location and ensure their safety. Could it be? He suddenly thought of something and his eyes lit up. He looked at Shening excitedly and said, Master, are you trying to remind me that no matter what kind of mission it is, it's actually a way of training for me? I can't underestimate it, and I have to be fully prepared for everything? Don't worry, Master. I understand. Not entirely. As long as you're happy. Not really. I Ching was stunned. He lowered his head and thought seriously for a while. His eyes widened again. Could it be? Master thinks that something special will happen on this trip, and that it will be a test for my cultivation, and is worried that I can't handle it? Hee. Guess. Forget it. Lomun rolled his eyes and said, The only thing she's worried about is that no one will cook. I understand. In that case, I'll have to trouble Master for this trip. I Ching still looked determined. How could an outsider understand Master's painstaking efforts? I will definitely not let you down. Hey. Lomun's mouth twitched. Did you even hear what I said? Can a brainless fan get better? What are you doing here? I Ching finally turned to look at the person beside him. His eyes turned cold. Here to steal his skills again. Lomun's heart turned cold and his stomach ached. Sword Immortals didn't even call him supremacy anymore. Wasn't the difference too big? Why? She can go but I can't? How could he treat her so differently? I saw that this trip is dangerous, and came to protect these little disciples out of kindness. Can't I? He was so bored now that she was gone. I Ching's expression turned even colder. But he really had no reason to stop him. Looking at the disciples who had arrived one after another, he shouted, Let's go! Turning around, he summoned his spirit sword and reached out to Shening. Master, let's go! With that said, he ignored a certain someone beside him, and flew out first with a whoosh. Hey, 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 why are you flying so fast? Lone Moon immediately chased after them, the disciples who did not know the truth. A team led by a soul formation supremacy and a nascent soul-perfected master. Was the difficulty of this experiential learning beyond the horizon? This time, they were going to a remote town south of the Black Heaven sect. According to the request for help, a great demon had appeared near the town 3 months ago. Many people had seen it. So far, dozens of people had been killed. The victims had their hearts cut out and their stomachs dug out. They died horribly, including a golden core Tao lord who had gone to subdue the demon. The entire town was in a state of panic. They had no other choice but to seek help from the Black Heaven sect. A demon that could deal with a golden core Tao lord had to be at least at the 8th level of cultivation. That was why Sect Master Chiu had decided to let a nascent soul-perfected master lead the team. There were dozens of disciples on this trip, all of whom were at the foundation establishment stage. The highest among them was only at the perfected foundation establishment stage. The group flew for half a day before they arrived at the small town. The town was not big, and they could see the end of it at a glance. They found an inn to stay in, and I Ching let the disciples go and gather information on their own. After all, it was their experiential learning, so he naturally could not interfere too much. More than 10 disciples went around for the whole afternoon, and only returned at dusk. However, their expressions were very strange, as if they were all a little confused. What's going on? Lone Moon looked at the disciple at the front. He remembered that this seemed to be Shi Qiu's eldest disciple. Chang'an, what did you find out? Reporting to Grand Uncle Master. Chang'an stepped forward and replied with cupped fists. We wanted to ask those who had seen the demon appear, and find out what kind of demon it was. However, after asking, we found out that more than half of the people in this town had seen this demon. Oh, so arrogant. Lone Moon frowned and motioned for him to continue. They said that this demon only appears in the middle of the night. When it comes, it is accompanied by a black chi, so we can't see its appearance at all. Chang'an continued. The silk shop, winery, in the west of the town, the bookstore in the east of the town, the rouge shop, and even the hunter's house at the end of the street. The demon has broken into all of them. It seems that the demon has been wreaking havoc here for a long time. Lone Moon tightened the jade flute in his hand. How are those who have seen the demon? How are their injuries? Chang'an's face twitched, and his expression became even more conflicted. They are not injured. What? Lone Moon was stunned. How could this be? They are not injured. Didn't they say that more than 10 people died in this town, including a golden core cultivator? Indeed. Chang'an nodded. But those who have seen the demon are indeed not injured. I also checked their pulse one by one. Whether it is their spirit or body, they are not injured. And I heard them say that they seem to be stronger than before. As soon as he said this, the other disciples nodded and added. Yes, the owner of the silk shop is also much more energetic than before. Yes, the lady boss of the winery is not insomnia anymore. The waist of the master of the bookstore is not sore anymore. The old legs of the owner of the rouge shop are all cured. Lone Moon. What the hell? For all. Could it be that the demon went to do charity in the middle of the night? Then what happened to the dozen people who died? Was the demon trying to fatten them up before killing them? When the demon broke into their houses in the middle of the night, those people really didn't suffer any losses. That's not it. Something happened to them too. What happened? The silk shop lost a big rooster the other day. What? The winery lost too. The big yellow dog from the bookstore lost a leg. The rabbit from the rouge shop is missing. Lone Moon. What kind of nonsense is this? Is this demon here to be funny? Killing people to extract their hearts, and doing charity at night. But why were chickens and rabbits the ones that were lost? Could it be that the demon is a fox demon? He frowned and thought for a while. He already had a plan in mind, but he remembered that this was a training for his disciples. Unless they encountered a situation they couldn't handle, he couldn't intervene. He could only suppress his guesses and glance at the people in front of him. Have you thought of a way to deal with it? Everyone was silent and looked at each other for a long time. No one stood up to offer an idea. Lone Moon shook his head and was about to sigh that they were indeed young and give them some advice. Shening, who had been munching on snacks for the whole day, suddenly interrupted. It likes to eat chicken. You can catch a few chickens to lure it out. Longmoon snorted and rolled his eyes. There were so many cultivators here, and the demon wasn't blind. It would be strange if it was lured out. Only a fool would. Junior sister, good idea. Chung An's eyes lit up, and he looked at Shening excitedly. Ha! Holy shit! You guys are really stupid. The other disciples all gathered around. Disciple 1. Yes, why didn't I think of that? We can lure the snake out of its hole. Disciple 2. Junior sister is so smart. You don't look familiar. Which peak are you from? Disciple 3. That's great. Why don't we set it up tonight? Disciple 4. All right, let's do as this junior sister says. I'll go buy some chickens. Disciple 5. I'll go set up the array. Disciple 6 I Ching. Huh? Could it be that Master's idea just now contained some powerful cultivation principles? Longmoon. He suddenly felt that the future of Black Heaven sect was bleak. Chapter 32. The night was dark and windy. It was a demon hunting night. The entire inn had long since been cleared out. It was silent. In the middle of the inn's inner courtyard, there were 4 to 5 fat roosters in a chicken coop. From time to time, the sound of their wings flapping could be heard. There was no one around. Even the waiters who usually patrolled the area at night were nowhere to be seen. However, if one looked closely, they would see a few figures lying on the roof, under the eaves, behind the door, and even in the flowers and grass in the courtyard. All of them were staring intently at the few snoozing chickens in the courtyard. 2 hours passed, nothing happened. 4 hours had passed, dead silence. 6 hours had passed. Achoo! Longmoon couldn't help but sneeze, attracting dozens of condemning gazes. His heart tightened. Damn it! He must be crazy not to stay up in the middle of the night to mess around with these idiots. After so long, not even a hair of the demon was seen. All right. You guys are done. He nudged Shening, who was next to him. He really didn't want to lie on the roof anymore. He already said that such a stupid plan wouldn't work. Those Foundation establishment disciples didn't know how to restrain their auras. The demon would be blind if it couldn't see a dozen cultivators full of spirit chi. It's all your fault for coming. It's coming. As soon as he finished speaking, a disciple called out in a low voice. A cloud of black chi suddenly descended from the sky. Longmoon. Holy shit. There really was a blind demon. The cloud of black chi pounced on the chickens in the coop as soon as it landed. There were a few crows in the courtyard. After 2 breaths, the chickens were gone. There seemed to be a yellow mass among the chicken feathers in the coop. Air. The black chi trembled and seemed to burp. Its body grew bigger and floated up again, as if it was going to fly away. Catch her! Chungin shouted. Instantly, the array formation in the courtyard lit up. The disciples who had been lying in ambush rushed over with their weapons. The black gas seemed to be startled. It quickly spun around on the spot and began to jump up and down under the attacks of the disciples. Perhaps it was because the inner courtyard was too small and there were too many Black Heaven sect disciples, but the crowd was so crowded that the demon managed to escape. Don't panic. Junior brothers and sisters, guard your own formation cores. Chungin was, after all, the eldest disciple of the sect leader. Seeing that they couldn't take it down in a short time, he began to instruct the others to first use a formation to restrain the monster. Only then did the chaotic disciples retreat. But it was precisely because of this retreat that the black gas instantly drilled out from the crowd, seized the opportunity to soar into the air, and rushed towards the right direction. F***CK. Chungin panicked. He looked up and saw that the mass of black gas had already rushed out of the range of the array and was flying directly to the right. And the one guarding there was Shening Longmoon I Ching. Chungin stopped in his tracks. Remembering that this was their training, he immediately shouted at Shening. That junior sister, stop it. Shening paused. The ball of black chi was already right in front of her. It was a chubby ball with 2 black tails trailing behind it, swaying back and forth. She subconsciously reached out to grab it and gently pulled it down. Meow! A blood-curdling scream pierced through the sky. That thing fell on the roof with a thud. The black chi on its body dissipated, revealing a black-clothed youth. There were 2 black ears on his head, and 2 chubby tails on his back. A cat cosplay? A 2-tailed civet cat. Lone Moon took a step forward in surprise. Wasn't this a 6th-level demon? Wasn't it supposed to be an 8th-level demon? The transformed civet cat looked to be about 10 years old. Perhaps it was in pain from the fall, but it pitifully hugged its big tail and blew at it. Its green eyes were filled with tears, as if it was about to cry in the next second. Meow! It looked up weakly at the 3 of them. Suddenly, as if it had thought of something, it turned around and took out a lump of yellow from its bag and pushed it in their direction. Lone Moon took a closer look and found that it was actually a piece of gold. What did it mean? Was it bribing them? Seeing that they were not moving, the civet cat was stunned. It took out another piece of gold from its bag and placed it side by side with the previous one. The 3 of them. This was a sensible civet cat. Seeing that they were still not moving, the civet cat demon gritted its teeth and poured out all the gold in the bag. Suddenly, 7 or 8 pieces of gold fell from the roof. It looked at them weakly and said, "No, no more, meow." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. It was not that he thought it was too little. Where did this demon that did not forget to pay for eating chicken come from? Tell me, why did you harm people? Ignoring the pile of gold as much as possible, Lone Moon took a step forward and pointed the jade flute in his hand at the civet cat on the ground. Meow! The civet cat trembled in fear, tears welling up in its eyes. It shook its head vigorously. Exalted immortal, have mercy, meow. I didn't do it. Although I'm not a vegetarian, I'm a pure house cat. I've never harmed anyone, good meow meow. Don't even think about quibbling. Lone Moon's voice deepened. Do you dare say that the chaos in this town was not caused by you? I ate a few chickens secretly. That was because I was hungry, meow. The civet cat cried even louder, its face full of grievance. But I paid for them. Really, I didn't harm anyone. It pointed to the gold on the ground and began to count with its fingers. I also cured Uncle Wang's waist injury, Uncle Lee's foot pain, Uncle Zhao's rheumatism, Auntie Sun's water imbalance. Stop, stop, stop. What nonsense, a little civet cat demon like you knows quite a lot. Then how do you explain the dozen or so people who died in the town? And the golden core cultivator, who had his heart cut out and his stomach dug out? That was all done by that 8th-level fox demon. The civet cat seemed to think of something and trembled all over. I passed by here 10 days ago and saw it harming people. It even wanted to snatch my things, but I couldn't beat it. I had to hide in the town. Hide? Lone Moon was stunned. A moment later his eyes widened. You mean the town's protective array is still there? Thinking of this, he immediately conjured a seal. A bright light flew out from his fingertips and rushed to the sky. In a moment, a transparent protective shield appeared above the town, covering the whole town. It really was there. Every town under the protection of the Black Heaven sect would set up a protective array in the town to prevent demons, beasts, and fiendish cultivators with malevolent chi from entering and harming mortals. Therefore, without breaking through this layer of protection, there was no way to enter the town. When he first received a request for help from this town, saying that there were demons causing trouble in the town, he subconsciously thought that the protective array had long been broken. That was why no one thought to check. But he did not expect it to still be there. And the reason why this civet cat could enter was probably as it said, that it had never harmed anyone. That was why there was no trace of malevolent chi on its body, and it did not trigger the array. Chapter 33. There's really another 8th-level fox demon? Meow meow meow. The civet cat nodded vigorously. Then you came out so late at night to scare people. Don't tell me. You're trying to stop people from going out of town, in case they encounter the fox demon? Meow meow meow. It nodded frantically. They'll be caught by the fox demon if they go out. I've tried very hard to stop people from going out of town, meow. Holy shit, it's true. No wonder the people who saw the demon were either merchants or hunters. You're a civet cat. Why didn't you go eat fish? Why did you eat someone's chicken? Lone Moon rolled his eyes at the demon. He had heard from Shichio that the people who died had deep claw marks on their bodies, and the wounds were thin and long. Most of the poultry lost in town were chickens, so he guessed that it might be a fox demon. He had never thought there would be two demons. But the chicken is delicious, meow. The civet cat replied weakly. Shining nodded in agreement. I love to eat chicken too. You're a foodie. Is there anything you don't like? Lone Moon glared at Shining. Which side are you on? Wait, what are you picking up? Shining's hand froze. Out of habit, I want to loot? Who doesn't want to loot when eating chicken? Loot your ass. Do you think this is a game? You just want to pick up money, don't you? I saw you putting it in your pocket. Put the gold down. Tisk, stupid teammate. What did you say? I dare you to say it again. Master. I Ching silently stepped forward and reminded him. Gold is meaningless to cultivators. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the intelligence of a sword immortal was still there. Cultivators all use spirit stones for transactions. Why don't, he suggested seriously, let the civet cat exchange it for spirit stones? Good idea. Lone Moon, enough. Are the two of you here to subdue the demon, or to extort? On the first day of the trial, the demon was caught, but the matter was not resolved. Lone Moon had a headache. An 8th level fox demon was equivalent to a late-stage golden core cultivator. It was obvious that this batch of disciples could not deal with it. That demon could only be dealt with by him, or I Ching. But the outside world was so big, where could they find a fox demon? What does that fox demon want from you? Shining, who was squatting by the side and watching the show, suddenly poked the civet cat beside her. The civet cat stiffened for a moment. It had been trying its best to appear well-behaved, and the only thing missing was the word house cat written on its face. Its upright body tilted slightly, and its expression became flustered. Its big round eyes darted left and right, looking as if it wanted to say something but didn't dare. Lone Moon's expression turned cold. Only then did he remember this problem. That's right. The civet cat had said that it had entered the town to prevent the demon fox from stealing its things. What was so special about it that even a rank 8 fox demon had to snatch it? Tell me honestly, what do you have on you? The civet cat shuddered at the look in Lone Moon's eyes. He hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and saying, I'm actually acting on the orders of our clan leader. To congratulate the Myriad Demon King on his advancement. What the fox demon wants to snatch is my congratulatory gift, the violet glowing lingji. Violet glowing lingji? Lone Moon was shocked. That was a supreme grade spirit herb that matured only once in 10,000 years. Not only was it a divine healing medicine, but it could also be used to refine a 9th grade nascent formation pill, which could increase a cultivator's chances of forming a nascent soul by 50%. Even the Black Heaven sect might not be able to produce 1 or 2 stalks of it. So the fox demon wanted to refine a nascent formation pill to become a rank 10 demon king. Was that why it wanted to snatch it? Then why did it kill people and take their hearts? Also, when did the demon realm have a myriad demon king? Ordinary demon kings were all rank 10, which was equivalent to the nascent soul stage. The myriad demon king was rank 12, which was equivalent to the soul formation stage. Great immortals, I really have no choice but to meow meow. Please let me go. The civet cat kowtowed heavily to the few of them. The myriad demon king's advancement ceremony is in 7 days. If I'm late, our clan leader will skin me alive. Alright, we don't want to interfere in your business. Lone Moon did not want to be entangled with this little civet cat demon anymore. He waved his hand and said, on account that you didn't hurt anyone, let's go. You're not allowed to go out at night and scare people anymore. As for that fox demon, I'll go and settle the score with it. Wait a few days before you leave the town, in case you get robbed again. Thank you, great immortals. The civet cat nodded obediently. Don't worry, everyone. I've already hidden the gift. Even if the fox demon enters the town, it won't be able to find. Before it could finish speaking, there was a rumbling sound from above. The entire sky above the town suddenly distorted. There was a crack. The transparent array that was originally covering the sky suddenly broke into thousands of pieces, turning into specks of fluorescent light that fell down. Protective array. Lone Moon was shocked. Someone had forcibly broken through the array. There's demonic chi. I Ching frowned. After saying that, he turned and flew toward the east side of the town on his sword. Could it be that the fox demon has come? Shening, help. Where's she? Lone Moon was just about to instruct her to keep an eye on the other disciples, when he realized that the person who had been sleeping beside him just now had disappeared. And she even took the civet cat with her. Holy shit, when did she leave? Lone Moon looked in the direction of the demonic chi. He had no choice but to raise his hand and set up a few layers of array to protect the entire inn. Then he turned to the disciples and said, "You guys wait here for a while. Remember not to walk out of the array easily. We'll be back soon." With that said, he flew in the direction I Ching had gone. The place they were going was not far. It was just at the east side of the town. It was originally a deserted place, overgrown with weeds, but there was a dry well in the middle of it. At this moment, a red shadow flew out of the dry well. It was very tall, and its red fur was so red that it looked like it had been dyed with blood. Its 9 fiery red tails were waving wildly in the air. It was actually the 9-tailed blood fox. I Ching's sword flew out first, directly intercepting the blood fox's escape route. Meow's gift. A cry of surprise came from behind. I Ching subconsciously looked back, only to find that Shening had also come over with the civet cat. Taking a closer look, the fox demon was indeed holding a rectangular box in one of its tails. The fox demon had done this on purpose. It had long discovered that they had entered the town and knew where the civet cat had hidden the treasure. So, it had beaten them at their own game. It had let the civet cat distract their attention, then took the opportunity to break through the protective array and come in to steal the treasure. However, it probably had not expected that there would be nascent soul or even soul formation cultivators here. That was why it had been discovered. Roar! That huge blood fox suddenly roared. Ignoring the sword array that I Ching had set up, it swept its 9 tails directly towards the sword peak. 2 of its tails were instantly cut off, but it still managed to forcefully rush out of the sword peak and escape into the distance despite being drenched in blood. I Ching was stunned for a moment. Even Lone Moon, who had caught up, was stunned. He did not expect the fox demon to be so reckless. "Chase," Shening said. She was the first to run in the direction of the fox demon. Her figure flashed, and by the time she reacted, only a trail of dust was left behind. Only then did the remaining 2 people chase on their swords. They could still faintly see the figure in front of them, so fast that it was almost impossible to catch up with it. Lone Moon. She was running, right? She was really running, right? If she could run so fast, why did she usually have to rub against other people's swords? I Ching. Master is indeed worthy of being called. The civet cat. Why did she have to drag him along? No, I'm going to vomit, blarg. Chapter 34. Instead of saying that I Ching and Lone Moon were chasing the fox demon, it would be more accurate to say that they were chasing Shening, because her speed was too obvious. They only stopped when they reached the entrance of a cave. Shening was just standing at the entrance of the cave. In a daze? The fox demon hid in the cave? Lone Moon flew down and asked, "Why don't you go in?" Shening turned and glanced at him. She was expressionless, but Lone Moon could see the contempt in her eyes. "Don't you think there are a few words written at the entrance?" "Words? What words?" Lone Moon looked confused, but she reached out and pointed at the entrance of the cave. "There's a trap, come quickly. Air." Indeed, the fox demon clearly knew that someone was chasing it. It could have hidden anywhere, but it ran into a cave that looked like a dead end. Nobody would believe that there was no preparation inside. "Then what should we do?" "There's no other way." Lone Moon frowned. "We can't let the fox demon refine a nascent formation pill. Otherwise, it will become a demon king after eating it, and it will be even harder to deal with." "Master," I Ching stepped forward and suggested, "this cave doesn't look deep. Why don't I use a sword array to force it out?" "Huh. Sword array?" "There was such a sword array." Shening nodded. I Ching immediately conjured a seal, and the sword in his hand turned into a sword array. Along with the spirit chi, it flew into the sky. In an instant, the sky was filled with a dense rain of swords. I Ching changed the seal in his hand, and the rain of swords began to gather in the sky. In a short while, it turned into a huge golden sword that reached the sky. I Ching leaped into the air, and his entire body seemed to melt into the huge golden sword. Suddenly, the sky was filled with sword chi. Loman's heart jumped. Even he might not have such sword chi. He was indeed a sword immortal. It had only been a few days, and he had already completely understood and integrated his sword intent. He was excited. He saw I Ching's sword move change again. He raised his right hand suddenly and shouted with a solemn expression, "Break!" The huge sword immediately came crashing down. With a boom, it directly split the cave in front of them into two. However, the giant sword did not stop. Instead, it changed its direction. It sliced sideways, vertically, diagonally, as if it was slicing vegetables. Once again, and again. Lone Moon, who had been anticipating a big move. For all. Ngungul flips table. So it's just smashing. Hey, this is called forcing it out. This is clearly a demolition, okay? Don't think that I can't recognize you because you're not using an excavator, you bastard. Wait a minute. Why did this move look so familiar? Holy shit. Wasn't that the sword Shening used to split the sea apart? You really know how to apply what you've learned. Master. Seeing that the cave had already been cut into a pile of rubble, I Ching flew back. All right. There were no more traps. Thank you for your hard work. Hard my ass. Where's the fox demon? Where's the fox demon? What happened to forcing it out? They haven't even come out yet. Raccoon. These people are so scary. Meow Meow wants to go home. Lone Moon took a few deep breaths before he could suppress the curses in his heart. He released his divine perception and began to search for the fox demon among the rubble in front of him. The strange thing was that the demonic chi that had been so obvious earlier had suddenly disappeared. He paused and stepped forward. The fox demon is gone. I Ching also paused. He released his divine perception, and indeed there was no trace of the fox demon. I've been paying attention to the surroundings just now. I didn't see it escape. It must still be here. Indeed, if the fox demon could slip away under their noses, it would not have had to break two of its tails to escape. One must know that the blood fox's tails were its cultivation level. Losing two tails at once was a huge sacrifice to its cultivation level. What's that? The two of them were about to search carefully again when Shening suddenly pointed to a place and asked. Lone Moon looked in the direction she was pointing. There was still a pile of rubble there. There was nothing special about it. Out of trust in Shening, he quickly walked over and gently brushed the pile of rubble. These rocks are floating, meow. Cats had the best night vision. The raccoon could tell at once that something was different. But because it was not floating high, it could not be seen just now. Lone Moon was shocked. He immediately conjured a wind seal and swept away the rubble around him. Below him was an intact stone slab. There was not the slightest crack after I Ching had smashed it. And on this stone slab, there's an array formation on it. Lone Moon shouted. The lines on the stone slab were clearly traces of an array formation. It was just that because there was no spirit chi to activate it, he could not see it for a moment. What's the use of this array formation? I Ching asked. Shening and he were both laymen when it came to array formations. Lone Moon carefully looked at the array formation. After a while he said, "This looks like an isolation array, but the Dharma talisman on it is different from ordinary array formations. It looks quite old." He frowned. But the fox demon must be hiding under it. With that said, he directly mobilized his spirit chi and pressed one hand on the stone slab. For a moment, the lines on the stone slab seemed to be lit up. They lit up instantly and became bigger and bigger until they spread to the entire pile of rubble. Rubble of all sizes floated up, and the stone slab under their feet began to move slowly in all directions. "It's open." Lone Moon reminded them and signaled for everyone to step back. In a short while, a huge pit appeared on the ground. The pit was so deep that they could not see the bottom. There was also a faint, strong stench coming from inside. Demonic chi. I Ching looked up at the two. It's that fox demon's. It's really hiding down there. After it, Lone Moon said and jumped in. This fox demon was also very cunning. No wonder it wanted to hide back in the cave. It was dark in the cave. If they escaped into it, they would definitely not be able to find this array formation. Naturally, they would not be able to find it. But it probably did not expect that they would split the cave open. The cave was very deep. They flew down for a full 2 minutes before they landed on the ground. It was pitch black all around. Lone Moon raised his hand and summoned a ball of fire to light up the surroundings. Only then did they see clearly that there was nothing around them. It was quiet. But there was no sign of the fox demon. The demonic chi was so strong. It's so smelly here, meow. Once they jumped down, the civet cat covered its nose and subconsciously hid behind Shening. Shening looked around and reached out to touch the mountain wall. But her hand was smeared with red. Hey, is this mountain bleeding? Blood? Lone Moon was stunned. He immediately walked over and looked at the dripping mountain wall. He thought that the soil here was red, but upon closer inspection, he realized that it was not red at all. It was clearly dyed red with blood. Could it be? There are only bloodstains on this side of the mountain wall. I Ching looked around and said. Lone Moon frowned. He had a bad feeling. He pulled Shening away and said, "Step back. There might be something behind this mountain wall." He conjured a seal, and the jade flute in his hand turned into a sword move. Dozens of sword chi instantly hit the stone wall. With a loud bang, the mountain wall in front of them collapsed, revealing an even wider space. The strong smell of blood hit their faces. Everything was red. Be it the surroundings or the ground, there were bloodstains everywhere. There were also some decomposed limbs scattered on the ground. In the middle of the space stood a square platform. At this moment, the platform was lit up with the red light of an array formation, making the entire space even redder. Lone Moon blurted out, "Blood sacrifice array." Indeed. Chapter 35. You actually chased me all the way here. A man's voice suddenly rang out. There was a figure in red standing on the altar. He was obviously a man, but he looked exceptionally seductive. His eyebrows and eyes were full of flirtatiousness. There were 9 big red tails on his back. 2 of them were broken, and bloodstains could be seen on the cuts. It was the 9-tailed blood fox from before. Blood fox, you killed so many people and dug out their hearts just to set up this blood sacrifice array? Lone Moon frowned and glanced around. What exactly do you want to do? The blood sacrifice array was a well-known evil array. It required human hearts as a sacrifice, and the blood of thousands of living creatures as a guide to activate. It was very powerful. It was said that when the array was completed, it would form a blood cloud that would stretch for thousands of miles. Nothing would grow under the blood cloud. Obviously, this array was only half completed. The blood in the array was not enough to condense into a blood cloud, which meant that his next step was, "You want to massacre the entire city?" I Ching stepped forward. Obviously, he had thought of the same thing as Lone Moon. The dozen or so people he had killed were obviously not enough to activate the blood sacrifice array. But if all the people in the town were included, it would be enough. If they had not come early, the town would probably have been covered with corpses. That was my original plan. The blood fox snorted coldly. His tail, which seemed to be hiding something, suddenly moved in front of him. It lowered its head, and its originally fierce expression was instantly replaced with a face full of tenderness. It raised its hand and brushed its tail, its movements so gentle that it seemed to be afraid of startling something. The people in that town are lucky. Who asked that civet cat to bring something better for my son? Only then did everyone realize that his tail was holding a baby. The baby was wrapped in thick fur, and only half of his face was exposed. The baby looked yellow, as if he had just been born, and there was an open box on the altar behind him. Meow meow. Meow's gift. The civet cat's tears immediately gushed out. Looking at the box that had obviously been used, his heart was broken. Sob sob sob. The clan leader was going to skin him. The blood fox's face was full of excitement, and there was a hint of madness in his eyes. He hugged the baby on his tail tightly and murmured, "After absorbing the spirit chi of this purple cloudlingji, my son will soon wake up." As it turned out, the reason why he had set up the blood sacrifice formation was to use the evil blood chi in the formation that could reverse heaven and earth to cure his fox cub. But along the way, he discovered something even better, the raccoon's purple cloud lingji, so he racked his brains to snatch it. However, it's no use. Your child won't wake up, I Ching said coldly. What nonsense are you spouting? The blood fox suddenly went berserk, its blood-red eyes staring at I Ching. The purple cloud lingji can bring the dead back to life. It's the best healing panacea. How can it be useless? My son will wake up soon, very soon. You also know that it's only a healing medicine, not a medicine for resurrection. The violet cloud mysterious Ganoderma can't save a dead body that doesn't even have a soul. The fact that the baby had not woken up for so long was proof of that. I Ching continued. Blood fox, the baby in your hand died when he was born. No, impossible. The blood fox's expression became even more frenzied. He is the son of me and Shuer. He is the only bloodline that she has left for me in this world. He will not die. You're talking nonsense. Nonsense. The blood chi on the blood fox's body suddenly soared, and even a gust of cold wind blew through the entire space. Lone Moon frowned and exchanged a look with I Ching. He was no longer in the mood to talk nonsense with this obviously crazy fox demon. Both of them rushed out. The sword techniques in their hands changed, and for a moment, their eyes were filled with sword light. The blood fox roared, and the remaining 7 tails behind him suddenly lengthened. Like sharp blades, they flew out of the array and attacked the 2 of them. I Ching, attack its feet. Nothing could live under the blood sacrifice array. Although this array was not complete, the blood fox stood at the eye of the array, and the blood fog would protect its master. They could not hurt it unless they forced it out of the array. I Ching nodded. The surrounding spirit swords turned and blocked the blood fox's attack. The sword tip directly attacked the feet of the demon fox. Damn it! The blood fox roared angrily, and hurriedly withdrew one tail to block in front of him. In an instant, another tail was cut off. Although he could block the first wave of sword techniques, he could not block the second wave. The spirit sword stabbed into the ground under his feet, right at the eye of the array. The array immediately darkened. Seeing that the sky full of swords was about to rain down, the blood fox had no choice but to retreat and fly out of the center of the array. Without the support of the blood sacrifice array, the blood chi on its body suddenly decreased by half, and the sky full of sword chi became even sharper. Lone Moon and I Ching took the opportunity to attack the array. Just as they were about to destroy the array, the ground suddenly lit up with a blinding white light, and the entire space was reflected in white. A huge array suddenly appeared, and instantly covered the original blood array. They only felt their bodies become heavy, and they were directly suppressed by the array until they knelt on one knee. Even the spirit chi on their bodies began to flow continuously into the array. Damn it, they fell into a trap. Ha 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 ha. Standing outside the array, the blood fox suddenly laughed maniacally and looked coldly at the 2 of them. Humph. Did you really think that I would not prepare anything and just sit here and wait for death? Lone Moon's face darkened, but his body seemed to be pressed down by 1,000 pounds. He could not move at all, and even conjuring a few seals was useless. What exactly was this array? Why could even he not break through it? And it seemed to be able to absorb the spirit chi on their bodies. He took a closer look at the lines on the array, but found that there were some talismans on it that he could not understand. They looked like ancient words. This is an ancient soul-destroying array. His eyes widened in shock. Oh, so you know this array? The blood fox looked at him with some surprise, but his eyes became even more fierce. That's right, this is indeed an ancient array, but I did not know what it was before. But as long as it can control you, it's fine. You deliberately led us into the array. The ancient soul-destroying array was an array that had long been lost. Legend had it that it could absorb the spirit chi of any living creature in the array. He had only seen descriptions of this array in some ancient books. This array was definitely not set up by the fox demon. It was very likely that it had been here all along, and the fox demon had discovered it, so it deliberately set up the array eye of the blood sacrifice array here. And when they attacked just now, the spiritual chi just happened to reactivate this array. If you're right, I just tried. The purple cloud Lingji really cannot save my son. With a sweep of his fox tail, He directly swept the box on the altar to the ground. Gift. The civet cat reflexively wanted to pick it up, but was suppressed by the array, and could not even get up. But you can. The blood fox's tone changed, and his expression became even more excited. He looked at I Ching and Lone Moon, as if he was looking at a gluttonous feast. Ah! I did not expect the Black Heaven sect to directly give me a soul formation, and a nascent soul cultivator. With the cultivation of the two of you, in addition to this blood sacrifice array, I can once again summon my son's soul, and he can be resurrected. You still want to massacre the city? Lone Moon looked anxiously at the blood fox. So what if I slaughter them? The blood fox's expression became even more frenzied. As if thinking of something, he gritted his teeth, and the murderous intent in his eyes almost overflowed. Those stupid mortals should have died long ago. It's them they killed, my Schwer. What do they mean by humans and demons are different? It's all bullsh *t. Schwer. And I were truly in love. What has that got to do with them? Schwer was the love of my life, but she died because of them. They should pay with their lives. Holy shit, this was supposed to be a love story. He was wondering why the dead baby in his arms was in the shape of a human. It turned out that the birth mother was a human. Chapter 36. If it wasn't for that golden core cultivator who meddled in other people's business, and came looking for death, my blood sacrifice array would not have been delayed until now. He snorted coldly and swung his fox tail, sweeping away the spirit sword stuck in the eye of the array. The blood sacrifice array was activated again, and the dazzling white light and red light appeared again. But it's not bad now. After my son is resurrected, as long as he eats the two of you, he can at least form his core directly, ha 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 ha. Stop. Lone Moon watched as the blood sacrifice array began to spread in all four directions, at an extremely fast speed. Most of the blood was flowing directly in the direction of the small town. Lone Moon became even more anxious. Blood Fox, if you dare to massacre the entire city, my Black Heaven sect will not let you off. The Blood Fox laughed even louder. Black Heaven sect, so what? There are only the two of you here, plus a good-for-nothing civet cat. As long as I kill you, who will know that this array was set by me? That? Suddenly a voice sounded. Shening, who had not spoken in the array, raised a hand. You seem to have forgotten about me. Who are you? The blood fox was shocked, and turned his head violently. When did this person come in? Was there such a person just now? And, why are you fine? In the ancient spirit extermination array, she could actually move freely. How was this possible? Shening. Lone Moon was delighted. Holy shit. He actually forgot that this cheat was also here. Quick, destroy this spirit extermination array. What array? Shening looked around. How was she going to destroy it? This one on the ground, it's glowing white. Lone Moon shouted. Use the spirit sword scattered around to split open the geometric patterns on the ground. Oh. Shening casually pulled out a sword from the ground. Don't even think about it. The blood fox's eyes widened. The fox tail behind him directly attacked Shening, and it looked like it was going to pierce through her. But she suddenly turned back and casually grabbed several fox tails that were twisted together, so that it could not go any further. The blood fox was shocked. Just as he was about to retract his fox tail, Shening suddenly pulled hard. Suddenly, a stream of blood spurted out, and the remaining 6 fox tails of the fox demon were pulled off at the roots. It immediately let out a shrill scream, and could no longer maintain its human form. It rolled around in the formation in pain. It broke. Shening threw away the long-tailed fox in her hands with a look of surprise. You didn't use any strength. Lone Moon. I Ching. Civet. Suddenly, he felt that his arrival was a little unnecessary. Shening did not care about the fox anymore. She picked up a sword and stabbed it into the array that was glowing with white light. Immediately, half of the sword sank into the ground. There was a cracking sound, and the array instantly cracked. The light dimmed by more than half, but it did not directly collapse. Shening could only continue to push the sword into the soil. After a while, she felt that it was a little inconvenient. She simply stood up and lifted her leg, wanting to step the sword into the soil. Thus she forcefully stepped out. Boom. Not only the formation, but even the surroundings began to shake violently. The ground rumbled, and long grooves the width of an arm appeared. The white light instantly dimmed, shattering the formation. Lone Moon, why did you have to use a sword when you could have broken it with just one foot? I Ching's body relaxed. The huge feeling of restraint disappeared, and even the loss of spirit chi stopped. Just as he got up, he saw that the fox demon on the ground had turned into a cloud of red mist and was trying to escape. He waved his sword, creating dozens of spirit swords that pierced through the fox demon's body, pinning it to the stone wall. There was nowhere to escape. Master, what should we do with this fox demon? Shening looked at the half-dead blood fox on the stone wall. A trace of doubt flashed across her face. Just as she was about to speak, Lone Moon spoke first. Do you even need to ask? This fox demon actually wanted to massacre the city. Such a lunatic, it deserves to die. If you want to kill, then kill me. The blood fox snorted coldly. The blood on its body flowed freely, but it still had a fierce look on its face. I only regret that I did not kill those mortals in the town as soon as possible to avenge my wife and children. You really don't repent. Lone Moon was just about to kill it. Shening suddenly said, Wait a minute, not so fast. It can't be Shening. Lone Moon tugged at her sleeve and said in a low voice with a look of disapproval. You don't sympathize with this demon and want to let it go, do you? Forget about that fiendish cultivator. He was not bad in nature, and his actions were pardonable. But this demon fox was full of blood and murderous aura. If she let it go now, who knew how many people would die in the future? No, I just haven't figured out some things. Aren't you curious? She pointed at the blood fox. Even though its tail was completely broken, it still subconsciously used its broken tail to protect the dead baby. The one on its tail, is that really its son? It should be. Otherwise, why would it be so desperate? Lone Moon replied casually. But didn't it just say that the child is a human? Yes. Didn't it just say that? He nodded. It fell in love with a human. It is a demon, and it has demonic aura on it. It can't be with a human. That's why people say that humans and demons have different paths. Mortals have always been afraid of demons. It's normal for them to reject people who love demons. That's why it wanted to take revenge on the people in the town. Can a human and a demon really have children? I think so. Wasn't there one? Is there no reproductive isolation? He really hadn't thought about this question. Did you freaking think for half a day just to ask this question? Look, in theory, individuals of different species are controlled by different genotypes. They have different reproductive behaviors and related reproductive rates. That's why the gene flow between species is restricted or prevented. It's impossible for different species to produce offspring. Why did she suddenly become so academic? He used to study finance, not biology. He didn't understand at all. But why do I feel that it makes so much sense? Reproductive isolation is restricted. It's impossible for humans and animals to reproduce. So, she tilted her head. Where did that child come from? Lone Moon and I Ching. Half a minute later, they both turned to look at a certain demon on the mountain wall. Suddenly, they felt that its fur was a little green. Shening asked seriously, Well, are you sure it's that child's biological father? The blood fox. A while later, the fox spat out a mouthful of blood. Its mouth moved, but it couldn't squeeze out a word. In the next moment, its head tilted to the side, and there was no more sound. It was suffocating to death. Lone Moon and I Ching. Two pairs of eyes turned to Shening. Why are you looking at me? Shening hesitated. Did I say something wrong? Lone Moon. He didn't know where to start. I Ching. +1. Chapter 37. Woo woo woo. Meow's gift, it's gone meow. The civet cat hugged the box on the ground and cried sadly. Lone Moon walked over and looked at the already open box. The spirit herb in the box had already withered. He sighed and said, The spirit chi in this herb has been sucked dry. Don't think too much about it. The civet cat had thought that the fox demon was using it to refine pills and wouldn't use it so soon. He didn't expect that he had to save his son. He was too late. The civet cat cried even harder when he heard that. Shenning turned to look at the box in his hands. Only then did she realize that there was a dried-up radish? It doesn't look like a radish. It's a purple cloudlingji, Lone Moon corrected. She picked up the leaf curiously. Apart from being purple, it looked like a radish everywhere. Woo woo woo. Without the gift for the myriad demon king, meow meow can't go back meow. The civet cat cried even harder. That? Shenning hesitated. The myriad demon king you're talking about isn't a rabbit, is it? How do you know? The civet cat stopped crying and looked up with teary eyes. The myriad demon king's original form is indeed a rabbit. It really is. You should have said so earlier. That's easy. Shenning patted its head. I'm very familiar with rabbits. Don't cry. I'll help you write a letter to explain. With that said, she looked around and tore a piece of cloth from the person next to her. Holy shit, why are you tearing my clothes? Lone Moon held onto the remaining half of his shirt and jumped up. If you don't have paper to write on, can't you just tear your own? You really don't treat me as an outsider. Who asked you to be so white? That's how you can write. He turned to look at the civet cat in black, I Ching in blue, and Shenning in green. He actually couldn't refute. Shenning had already started writing on the white cloth. She even used the blood on the ground as a source of inspiration. He quickly wrote 2 lines of words, then kindly put it back into the box and handed it over. Alright, you just need to show this to the rabbit. It won't blame you. Is this really okay? Raccoon took the box in a daze, still looking worried. Don't worry, it's a good grass-eating rabbit. All he could do now was give it a try. Civet sniffed and put away the gift box. Just as he was about to express his thanks, the ground suddenly shook violently and cracked open. Beams of white light shot up into the sky, as if something was about to emerge from the ground. There's something underground. Lone Moon was shocked. He turned to the rest and said, This place is going to collapse. Let's fly out quickly. With that said, he hurriedly turned to fly on his sword. Master! I Ching hurriedly pulled Shenning back onto the sword. Together with the civet cat, who had turned back into black chi, they flew out of the deep pit. When they came out to take a look, they realized that it wasn't just the crater. Even the ground within a radius of 7 or 8 kilometers was cracking. Dazzling white light shot into the sky from the cracks. The entire ground suddenly protruded, and the earth quaked. Something huge was rising from the ground, and it was getting taller and taller. After a while, it finally left the ground and rose into the air. Only then did they see that it was a huge stone peak. It looked even bigger than the main peak of the Black Heaven sect. However, there were all sorts of strange talismans floating around the stone peak, as if it was surrounded by layers of array formations. As the stone peak rose into the air, the top of the peak began to flash with lightning and thunder. A purple bolt of lightning pierced through the air, and the air suddenly began to distort. In a short while, a translucent entrance that looked like a water mirror appeared on the peak. Faintly they could see another world inside. The immortal mountains were vast, and the spirit chi in the mountains was so dense that it was shocking. There was even a faint 7-colored mist. No, that was not spirit chi. It was immortal chi. This is the entrance to the ancient mystic realm. Lone Moon's eyes widened in disbelief. No wonder there was an ancient spirit exterminating array at the bottom of the crater. There was an ancient mystic realm hidden underground. In the Azure world, the ancient mystic realm had long been a legend. Although there were countless books and records left behind, no one knew if it really existed. Who would have thought that they would actually find an intact mystic realm here? What's a mystic realm? Shenning looked at the mountain that had suddenly emerged from the ground. Lone Moon turned back to look at her, unable to hide his excitement as he explained. A mystic realm is a small world that is independent of the Azure world. Although the map inside is a little smaller, it is a world of its own. Legend has it that only in the ancient times could there be spells to open mystic realms. Nowadays, there are very few mystic realms that appear in the Azure world. What's more, this is an ancient mystic realm. Oh, that means this is a pocket dimension. You could say that. Why did it feel like Shen Ying's words were of a lower standard? He cleared his throat and regained his composure. In a low voice he said, The ancient mystic realm has appeared. We don't know how long this entrance will last. Now that the situation in the mystic realm is unclear, we have to inform the sect as soon as possible. We have to discuss a plan before we go in to investigate. Lone Moon turned back to look at the mirror-like entrance on top of the stone peak. He did not know whether it was a good or bad thing that this mystic realm had appeared near the Black Heaven sect. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go straight back to the sect. Shen Ying and I Ching had no objections, so they nodded and bade farewell to the civet cat. Together, they turned back and flew in the direction of the Black Heaven sect. Lone Moon flew very fast, almost at the fastest speed he could fly on his sword. It only took him half the time to return to the sect. When he arrived, he vaguely felt that he had forgotten something, but he did not have time to think about it. Sai, forget it, it's not important. Chang'an and the disciples who were waiting at the inn. When will Uncle Master come back to remove this array? At the same time, in the pantheon of demons, the rabbit monarch, who had finally received a congratulatory gift, opened the crumpled white cloth in the box. Instantly, its legs gave way and it almost fell off its throne. On the cloth was written, "Rabbit, I'm taking the carrot that the cat gave me, don't blame it. Shening Shun. Shen. Exalted Immortal Shun. Was it blind? Was this really written by Exalted Immortal Shun, whom it had not seen for a long time? But in this world, she was the only one who called the purple cloud Lingji a carrot. But it was fine if she took the congratulatory gift. But why did she write a letter in blood? Was it a threat? This was a blatant threat. But what did Bunny do wrong? Why didn't Exalted Immortal say it? The rabbit monarch's little heart trembled. Once again, it felt the fear of being ruled by a glutton on the night of the 1,000 demon meat. It's over, what do I do? It thought for a moment, then immediately turned around and ordered, "Someone hurry. Hurry, check what else is in the treasury. Send everything to Exalted Immortal Shun's old residence. Yes, leave nothing behind. Also, go and clean up Exalted Immortal Shun's old residence. Yes, the kind that is spotless. Forget it, I'll go myself." Chapter 38. I'll go to the main peak to look for Shi Qiu. As soon as they returned to Black Heaven sect, Lone Moon gave them a few instructions. He did not bother about the other two, and hurriedly went to find the sect leader to discuss the mystic realm. I Ching sent Shening back to Inyuan Peak and looked at the sky. It's almost noon. Master, please wait for a moment. I'll go collect today's ingredients and be back soon. All right. Shening nodded. She turned around and entered the house. She sprawled on the stone table and dozed off. So tired. She did not sleep at all to deal with the green fox. She was really sleepy. After lying there for a while, his upper and lower eyelids were about to fall in love. I Ching, who had just left, came back with a conflicted look. So fast. Shening tilted her head and glanced at him. Where's the food you collected? Didn't he go to collect the ingredients? Why did he come back empty-handed? Master. I Ching looked guilty. The people from the External Affairs Hall said that our monthly amount of spirit rice has been collected. Ah. She was stunned. Isn't there an unlimited supply? I just found out too. There is a limit to the monthly supply of spirit rice. If he had known earlier, he would not have made so many pastries. It was all that freeloader's fault. Yes, he must have eaten too much and caused Master to have no rice to cook. The External Affairs Hall said that we can use spirit stones to exchange with other disciples, but Shen Ying's mouth twitched. I understand. They had no money. After a few months, she finally remembered the biggest crisis since she transmigrated: poverty. Don't worry, Master. In 2 days it will be the day of the sect's distribution. I can collect my spirit stones then. I Ching immediately comforted her. And there are many beasts around Black Heaven sect. Master may have to eat some meat these few days. I'll go catch it now. What a good chef. Shening sighed. As a master, she was so poor that she could not even afford to pay for a meal. She even had to let her disciple hunt for wild animals. It was really too convenient. Then I'll leave it to you. Shening patted his shoulder. Go, I'll wait for you. Yes, Master. No problem, Master. I Ching nodded vigorously, turned around and flew away. She sighed again. In terms of a chef's professionalism, he deserved full marks. However, he couldn't go on like this. It seemed that it was time to find a way to make money. If she had known earlier, she would have picked up the gold that the civet cat had dropped. It was all that temporary chef's fault. Achoo! On the main peak, Lone Moon, who was in the middle of a discussion, sneezed. Huh? Why did it feel like someone was scolding him? Uncle Master? Shichio gave him a puzzled look. It's okay, you can continue. All right. I feel that the matter regarding the ancient mystic realm is of great importance. The reappearance of the ancient mystic land was a good thing. When he first heard the news, he was ecstatic. After all, it was an ancient mystic land. Moreover, no one had ever set foot in it before. Who knew how many rare treasures were hidden inside? Who wouldn't like it? Who wouldn't be excited? However, after the ecstasy, a bit of worry surfaced in his heart. Before the spiritual light shot into the sky, the various sects must have sensed it and sent people to investigate. It won't be long before everyone knows about this. Yes, I'm aware of that. Lone Moon nodded. But this mystic realm appeared in Black Heaven sect's territory after all. We can't just ignore it. As for the matter of entering the mystic realm, you are the sect leader, so this matter is up to you to decide. I just feel that there's a limit to how long the secret realms can remain open. Since this is something that the sects will find out about sooner or later, I'm sure they'll find out sooner or later. Why don't we directly inform the 3 sects and 6 schools, and invite them to enter the mystic realm together to find out what's going on? Shichio said in a low voice. As for the candidates to enter the mystic realm, it's up to each sect to decide. After all, this is an ancient mystic realm. There are opportunities and risks. It all depends on one's luck. Yes, I think so too. Lone Moon nodded. If that's the case, I'll send word to the various sections. Shichio bowed and quickly walked out the door. Lone Moon thought about it and turned to go to Lingxiao Peak. After all, this was a big matter. He needed to let the other 2 supremacies know so that they could decide who would enter the mystic realm as soon as possible. Once the people from the various sects and clans had gathered, they would enter the secret realm together. However, he did not expect that before the 3 sects and 6 schools could respond, a few unexpected guests arrived. The 3 people suddenly appeared in the sky above Black Heaven sect. Their appearance was accompanied by several sounds of heavenly music. The sky behind them seemed to have been torn apart. They had come through the void. Lone Moon and Shichio were shocked and did not react for a moment. After a while they realized they were people from the Upper Azure world. Why would people from the Upper Azure world come to a sect in the Middle Azure world? Where's your sect leader? The 3 people hovered in the sky for a while. The person on the far right glanced at the main peak under his feet. His eyes were full of contempt, as if he despised everything around him. He even released a faint coercion from his body. This was the coercion of a soul formation cultivator. Shichio was shocked. He stepped forward and said, I am Black Heaven sect leader Shichio. May I know why the supremacies of the Upper Azure world are here? Only then did the 3 of them descend from the sky and stop at the entrance of the main hall. They looked at Shichio with a look of disdain, but when they saw Lone Moon beside him, they froze for a moment. Their eyes darted around, and they finally looked a little more cautious. I am an elder of the Xianyuan family of the Upper Azure world. My Taoist name is Qing Yin. These 2 are my senior brothers. Qing Yin raised his head slightly and said proudly. Shichio was even more shocked. The Xianyuan family, the Middle Azure world, did not know much about the Upper Azure world, but they had heard of this family name. It was one of the 4 great aristocratic families of the Upper Azure world. Why would they suddenly send an elder to a sect in the lower realm, and 3 of them at once? The appearance of the ancient mystic realm has caused a phenomenon in the Upper Azure world. We are here to investigate on the orders of the Patriarch. Qing Yin continued. The dangers of this mystic realm are unknown, and even the Upper Azure world knows little about the ancient land. To prevent any mishaps, we are willing to help the Middle Azure world enter the mystic realm first. Shichio's face darkened. It turned out that they were also attracted by the ancient mystic realm. What help? It was obvious that they wanted a share of the spoils. And from their tone, They wanted to be the first to enter the mystic realm. How is that possible? Thank you for your kind intentions, supremacies. This mystic realm has appeared in the territory of my Black Heaven sect. It is not convenient for my sect to handle it alone. So yesterday we invited all the sects to discuss the matter of entering the mystic realm. I'm afraid that all the sects are already at the entrance of the mystic realm, so there is no need for you three supremacies to test the waters. What? Qing Yin was stunned. He did not expect that after someone discovered the ancient mystic realm, not only did they not rush to claim ownership of it and claim it for their own sect, but they even informed the other sects to share it. His brows furrowed instantly. Indeed, they were just cultivators from the lower realm. A bunch of idiots. The suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator was immediately released towards the other party. Lone Moon, who was beside him, sensed it immediately and released his suppressive force at the same time, pushing back the other party's aura. So what if they were from the Upper Azure world? Their Black Heaven sect was not to be trifled with. Qing Yin was shocked and was forced to take a step back. He did not expect that the person beside him, who was only at the early stage of the soul formation stage, could block his suppressive force. Just as he was about to counterattack, the person in the middle who had been silent all this time suddenly took a step forward. In an instant, an even stronger suppressive force came back at him. Lone Moon frowned, almost unable to block it. He looked at the other party in surprise. This was not the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator. This person was a traveling immortal who had achieved disintegration. The so-called traveling immortal referred to cultivators who had reached the ascension stage, but failed to ascend. In order to save their lives, they had no choice but to disintegrate and become traveling immortals. Although traveling immortals were also cultivators, they were not considered real immortals. However, they were stronger than the soul formation cultivators. It was just that after disintegration, they no longer had the chance to ascend. What was so special about the ancient mystic realm that it made the resource-rich Upper Azure world send 3 high-level cultivators, one of whom was even a traveling immortal, over there. Chapter 39. You're a sword cultivator. The traveling immortal was shocked as well. An early-stage soul formation cultivator could actually remain unscathed under his coercion. Only a sword cultivator could do that. Yes, Lone Moon answered and became even more vigilant. Senior brother Qing Lan and the rest. Qing Yin stepped forward, as if he wanted to say something. Forget it. The traveling immortal cut him off. Since this matter has already been publicized, let the others enter if they want to. But we have already warned you about the risks inside. Take care of yourselves. Qing Yin seemed to have thought of something, and his lips curled into a malicious smile. That's true. Anyway, only cultivators with at least nascent soul cultivation can enter the mystic realm. Other sects can also enter if they want. Every ancient realm is filled with ferocious beasts. Let's see how many of you are willing to enter. Only nascent soul cultivators can enter. Shichio's eyes widened in shock. Only nascent soul cultivators and above could enter the mystic realm. Although Black Heaven sect had many nascent soul cultivators, they could not compare to the Upper Azure world. And from his tone, even nascent soul cultivators would not be able to go deep into the mystic realm. The entrance to the ancient mystic realm usually only opens once every 5 to 1,000 years, and it lasts for 3 months at most. You immortal sects from the lower realm better hurry up. Qing Yin laughed mockingly. The 3 of them rode on their swords and disappeared into the sky. Needless to say, they must have entered the mystic realm. What should we do? The more Shichio thought about it, the more conflicted he became. Of course they had to enter, and they could not be late. Who knew if the upper realm would send more people? After all, this was an ancient mystic realm. But Black Heaven sect had a limited number of nascent soul cultivators, and could not send all of them in. Moreover, 2 of the 3 soul formation cultivators were still in seclusion, and could not come out. I'll go in and see what's going on. Lone Moon also thought of this and said in a low voice, let's not talk about what's going on in the mystic realm. Just this trip by the 3 of them has created a feud with Black Heaven sect. It's not appropriate for the other nascent soul hall masters to go. I can at least protect myself. Uncle Master. He was indeed the most appropriate person to go. But I have to bring 2 more people. Who? I Ching. That's right, there's also perfected I Ching. He was also a sword cultivator, and was not inferior to a soul formation supremacy. He was indeed very suitable. There's also his master. What? Shichio was stunned. He has a master? Lone Moon had a good plan. That traveling immortal did not look easy to deal with, and no one knew what was in the mystic realm. In this situation, he could only use cheats. Given Shen Ying's perverted powers, bringing her along would be more useful than bringing along a dozen soul formation cultivators. Although she was a little lazy, a little bad with directions, a little perverted, a little troublesome, and a little infuriating, in terms of safety, she was indeed useful. He had never fought a traveling immortal before. But Shen Ying could at least fight him to a draw, right? In addition, he and I Ching might not win for sure, but they wouldn't lose. He had everything planned out. Given his relationship with Shen Ying this favor. I'm not going. Shen Ying tilted her head, which was slumped on the table. Lone Moon's chest tightened. His face hurt. Why? Never in his wildest dreams would he have expected her to reject him. It's so troublesome. She hated going out the most. It would be better to sleep at home. Troublesome my ass. He could not help but help the pile of mud on the table up again. You should at least be polite, and find a more proper reason. What the hell is troublesome? I'm not going. She leaned back on the table again. She was about to run out of food. Why bother going out? She might as well save her energy. Holy shit. Just do me a favor. We're from the same hometown. Do you have to be so disloyal? Just go into the mystic realm, and you'll be back in 3 months. It'll be fast. I helped you to Sword Comprehension Peak last time. You should return the favor. It's not suitable to go out now. Why? I want to hibernate. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. It's spring now. Oh, then hibernate in spring. Spring your ass. Lone Moon was fuming, but there was nothing he could do about this shameless person in front of him. He could only continue to persuade her. This is a big matter for the sect. If you help me, everyone will remember your kindness. I'm not going. There's no salary. Lone Moon felt his blood pressure rise. He had an urge to strangle the person in front of him. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. After some thought, he took out a bag of spirit stones from the storage bag beside him and slammed it on the table. Salary. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed into slits. She moved forward like a pile of mud. She opened the bag and saw that it was filled with superior-grade spirit stones. The lazy person was getting restless. 3 months is too long. The damn homebody had never been away from home for so long. Boom. Another bag slammed on the table. The lazy person on the table immediately stood up. She stepped forward and held Lone Moon's hand. She said righteously, Father Nio, when do we set off? Get lost. Who's your Father Nio? All right, Father Nio. She picked up the 2 bags of spirit stones and turned to run towards the kitchen. As she ran, she said proudly, Chef, we have money now. Shall we go buy some groceries? Yes, Master, no problem, Master. Master is so amazing. To hell with friendship. By the time Lone Moon rushed to the entrance of the mystic realm, all the sects had already arrived. Outside the stone peak, there was a dense crowd of cultivators. Because they did not know beforehand, there were cultivators of all levels of cultivation who came. In front of the entrance of the mystic realm, the 3 people from the Upper Azure world had also arrived. They stood at the front. Perhaps they had already told everyone that only cultivators above the nascent soul stage could enter the mystic realm. Many cultivators from the 3 sects and 6 schools looked disappointed. Seeing him appear, the cultivator called Ching Yin deliberately looked at him and smiled mysteriously. Sword cultivator from the Black Heaven sect. We'll meet in the mystic realm. With that said, he followed the other 2 and jumped into the mirror-like entrance. Lone Moon frowned. It seemed that this Ching Yin was still holding a grudge against him for using his coercion to force him to retreat at the Black Heaven sect. And he had already made up his mind to make things difficult for him inside. Fortunately, he had brought a cheat. He greeted the cultivators from the various sects he was familiar with, and did not stay for long. He flew in with Yi Qing and Shining. The moment they passed through the mirror-like water, they felt a sudden silence. In front of them was a vast expanse of whiteness. Their vision was blocked for a moment. In less than 3 breaths, they arrived in a completely unfamiliar dense forest. The air was filled with spirit qi that was tens of times thicker than the outside world. It was refreshing. He looked around but did not see Qing Yin and the others who had entered first. There was no sign of any other cultivators either. It seems that the location of the Mystic Realm's entrance is random. Lone Moon looked at Yi Qing and said, "Fortunately, we used the shadow tracking spell on ourselves beforehand. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to. And where's Shining?" He looked left and right, and even turned a few rounds to look, but still did not see that foodie. Holy shit, the cheat was lost. He clearly used the shadow tracking spell. At that moment, Shining. She looked at the huge monster that had suddenly appeared in front of her, which was as tall as a mountain. Was this edible? Chapter 40. Shining yawned. By the time she reacted, she was left alone in this forest. Other than the trees around her, there was only the radish in front of her, waving its leaves and digging a hole. Radish? Shining was stunned. Were all the plants in this world the same? Why did they all look like radishes? And this one could actually move. She couldn't help but poke its leaves. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Gee." The radish slowly turned its white and plump body and glanced at her. It seemed to be startled, and began to dig the hole even faster. Gee. It didn't care if the hole was dug properly or not, and the whole radish desperately stuffed itself into the half-dug hole. It even scooped up 2 handfuls of soil, and scattered it on the leaves on top of its head. Then it assumed a natural pose and stopped moving. The corner of Shenying's mouth twitched. She looked at the radish in front of her. It seemed to say, "You can't see me, you can't see me, you can't see me." So this is a radish spirit with low intelligence? She squatted down, and was about to take a closer look, when suddenly there was a loud roar in front of her. She looked up and saw a huge monster as tall as a mountain. She didn't know when it had jumped out. 2 eyes as big as car lights were staring at the radish spirit in the hole in front of her. Suddenly, it opened its mouth and bit the ground. The radish spirit's body, which was originally green, instantly turned pale. It didn't pretend to be a plant anymore. The moment the huge beast bit down, it jumped out of the pit and ran around in panic. Gee. It had no direction at all. After running 1 round, it hit the tree head-on. The leaves on its head swayed. It turned around and looked around, as if there was no place to hide. Suddenly, it rushed towards her and burrowed into the hem of Shenying's clothes. It trembled like an ostrich, only revealing half of the snow-white radish tip. The giant beast didn't manage to bite the radish, but it directly bit a big hole in the ground. It seemed to be angered and its eyes widened. It looked up and looked straight at Shening, instantly treating her as an enemy who snatched the radish. The scales on its body exploded, and it opened its mouth to roar threateningly at her. Roar! A gust of wind with a strong fishy smell instantly blew on her face. The giant beast opened its mouth wide again, as if it wanted to swallow Shening whole. Shenying's brows furrowed. She reached out and slapped him. "It stinks." With a bang, the monster's head smashed into the ground like an iron ball, creating an even bigger pit. The huge impact even caused the ground to tremble. Half of the monster's body was instantly buried in the ground, the kind that could not be pulled out. The 6 feet it had left on the ground straightened, and there was no more movement. Shining frowned and fanned herself in front of her nose. After a while, she fanned away the stench. This little animal had such a big breath. She tilted her head and looked at the mountain-like piece of meat in front of her. She thought about its edibility. Could it be eaten with bad breath? Unfortunately, Chef was not by her side. She thought about it and decided to give up. She would find Chef and Father Neo first. Thus, he turned around and looked for a random direction to look for someone. "Why are you following me?" Just as he took 2 steps, he turned around and saw that there was an extra tail behind him. The radish spirit was hopping after him. Gee. The radish shook its leaves and hopped over at a faster speed. A few of its leaves wrapped around her leg, as if trying to please her. It said excitedly, "Gee. What the hell was that?" Shunning shook her leg and shook off its leaves. Go. Go squat in your radish pit. She did not like radishes. Gee. Its voice deepened, and even its leaves withered. The whole radish looked sad from being rejected. Shunning could not be bothered with it. Just as she was about to continue looking for someone, she suddenly heard two familiar voices coming from not far ahead. "Shunning! Master!" The voices rose and fell continuously, as if they were broadcasting on a loop. The corner of Xunying's mouth twitched. She turned around and walked in that direction. When she passed by the giant beast, she pulled it out and dragged it away. Everywhere she went, the trees fell to the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. It was like a sandstorm had covered half the forest. Now there was Chef. 100 miles away, the Upper Azure World Trio. What's that sound? Qingyin paused and looked into the distance. What's happening in front? Why is the sky suddenly filled with yellow sand? Someone must have been unlucky enough to meet a ferocious beast, Qinglan answered. From the looks of it, it's most likely the beast king of this forest. It's at least a 12th level beast. Then there's no other way. We can only change direction. Go. To prevent the situation from happening again, where she was on the other side of the river, but could not be found no matter what, I Ching and Lone Moon shouted for a whole hour, before they finally saw Shunning strolling towards them. She was even dragging a mountain. "Master." I Ching stepped forward to greet her. "Hey, Chef." Shunning waved her hand in greeting. "What's this?" Lone Moon looked at the giant beast behind her. The roar he heard just now, could it be this? "Why did you drag this thing over?" "Meat," she replied matter-of-factly. She turned to I Ching and said, "You haven't had lunch, right? Come, Chef. See which part of the meat is good, and choose whatever you like." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. "You're the only one who wants to eat meat. You're a foodie indeed. You can't forget to eat no matter what." "Master, this can't be eaten," I Ching answered with a troubled expression. "Why?" She hesitated. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her. "This is a poisonous beast with poison all over its body. If you don't want to die, you can try." With that said, he took a step forward and looked at the beast carefully. But, with a wave of his hand, he conjured a wind blade and slashed at the top of the beast's head. Immediately, a large hole was cut open, and a green light flashed inside. An emerald-like bead immediately floated out. Lone Moon immediately conjured a seal and sent a spell over. The bead struggled for a while before floating back into his palm. This inner core is good stuff. A 12th level poisonous beast's inner core can cure hundreds of poisons. He conjured a fire elemental spell. Instantly, the mountain-sized corpse of the beast was engulfed in flames and turned into ashes. "Oh yes, where did you find this poisonous beast?" By right, 12th level poisonous beasts could transform long ago. They would not easily appear in their original forms unless they had a purpose. "Over there." Shunning pointed behind them. "Why are you asking?" "Master." I Ching took a step forward and explained. "Usually, there are treasures beside high-level beasts. Now that this beast is dead, the treasures it was guarding have become ownerless." "Oh, understood. In other words, the beast was killed, but the treasure was not taken. Think carefully. Is there anything else around this poisonous beast?" Lone Moon asked as he handed over the inner core in his hand. Shunning thought for a moment. Suddenly, she lifted the hem of her clothes and bent down to pick something up from her leg. "Does the leg pendant count?" "Gee." The radish that was suddenly pulled out waved its leaves cooperatively. The two of them were stunned. Their eyes widened, and they said in unison, "Vegetation spirit. Vegetation spirit." Chapter 41. What's a vegetation spirit? Shunning paused. It looked like a radish no matter how she looked at it. A vegetation spirit is a living thing formed by the accumulation of spirit chi, Lone Moon explained. Spirit herbs and spirit plants have spirit chi in them and live longer than demon beasts, but they cannot develop sentience. However, If it was in a place with an especially large number of spirit plants, the dense wood spirit chi might be able to induce the emergence of vegetation spirits among the spirit plants. But the probability is so low that it's negligible. This is my first time seeing a vegetation spirit. Oh, what's the use of that? It's still a radish. Of course it's useful. Lone Moon looked at the vegetation spirit in her hand excitedly. It's formed by the accumulation of spirit chi from spirit plants, so it can sense the existence of all spirit plants in the world. In other words, as long as you bring it with you, you'll know the location of all the spirit plants in this mystic realm. I see. So this was a vegetable version of a GPS. It's said that using the vegetation spirit's flower to refine pills can increase the grade of the pills. I Ching added as he looked at the vegetation spirit. It can flower? Shen Ying's eyes widened. A potted plant? But this vegetation spirit doesn't seem to be in its flowering stage yet. GGG. The moment she finished speaking, the radish in her hand suddenly wriggled excitedly. Shen Ying had no choice but to let go. The moment the vegetation spirit landed on the ground, the entire radish shrunk downwards. Even its body shrunk. The leaves on its head all curled up, as if it was using all its strength. Even its cries turned into squeaks. Air. Was it constipated? After holding it in for a long time, it suddenly straightened its body, and its leaves spread out. There was a spluttering sound, and a snow-white flower appeared on its head. Dandelion. Why did a dandelion grow from a radish? Did it mutate? It's blooming. I Ching exclaimed. The radish curled its leaves and plucked the dandelion off its head. It handed it to Shen Ying, as if to please her. No. Dandelions were very sticky to clothes. This is a 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit. I Ching was even more shocked. If ordinary vegetation spirits could raise the grade of pills, then the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit's flowers were practically synonymous with supreme grade pills. Any pill refined with its flowers would definitely be supreme grade pills. No wonder the Upper Azure world sent traveling immortals to this mystic realm. Lone Moon finally understood what the three of them were looking for in the mystic realm. They're looking for this vegetation spirit? I Ching asked. It should be. Lone Moon nodded. I heard that one of the 4 aristocratic families in the Upper Azure world has cultivators who specialize in refining elixirs. The family's most precious treasure is the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit, and it's the only one in the world. Vegetation spirits can't possibly grow in a place suitable for human cultivators. They also need dense wood spirit chi, I Ching continued. That's why he thought that there would be some in this mystic realm. That's right. Lone Moon looked at the vegetation spirit on the ground with a complicated expression. It kept raising its flower high, trying to give it to someone. If the three of them found out that the thing they were looking for had been picked up by Shen Ying the moment they entered the mystic realm, would they explode in anger? Great. Let's see how they're going to act tough now. Lone Moon's entire body felt good. Even a certain foodie seemed more pleasing to the eye. Shen Ying, how exactly did you make it recognize you as its owner? He was curious. Vegetation spirits were born from gathering spirit chi from heaven and earth. They were extremely arrogant creatures, and it was extremely difficult to tame them. Recognize you as its owner? I didn't. It didn't. Lone Moon looked at it dumbfounded. Why did it follow you if it didn't? And it even took the initiative to bloom flowers to please her. How would I know? It wanted to follow me. Shen Ying looked down at the dandelion on the ground, seeing that she did not want it, and was even working hard to bloom a second flower. She took a step back in disgust. If you like it, I'll give it to you. Me? Lone Moon was shocked. Even the Upper Azure world was trying so hard to get their hands on something. How could she just give it away so easily? Did she know what a vegetation spirit meant? It meant countless spirit herbs and elixirs. Did she still want to increase her cultivation level or not? Wait, she really didn't need it? Damn. The vegetation spirit on the ground seemed to understand what the two of them were talking about. Suddenly, it started waving its leaves anxiously. The radish was unwilling. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Forget it. I'm not a pill cultivator. What's more, It has already recognized you. Even if I wanted to form a contract with it, I would fail. Oh, Shening still looked indifferent. Why don't we throw it away? Throw it away, my ass. He had said so much for nothing. Then what should we do? She did not want to keep carrying a leg pendant. It was very heavy. Let's bring it back first. He turned to look around. It's getting late. There must be other things in this mystic realm. Let's hurry and go to the east. Shening had no objections. I Ching directly summoned his spirit sword and flew up with Shening habitually. Lone Moon was about to fly up on his sword when he felt something heavy on his leg. He looked down and coincidentally bumped into the sight of a leg pendant. Gigi. The radish was stunned. It looked at the two people in front of it who had already flown away, then looked at the leg it was hugging. It seemed to have just realized that it had hugged the wrong person. Immediately, it swung its leaves and threw the flower that it was holding onto the ground. It made a small sound. Pooey. Lone Moon. Was he being looked down upon by this radish? He was definitely being looked down upon. You hugged the wrong leg and you're blaming me? Go down if you have the guts. For all. With the vegetation spirit's guidance, Lone Moon finally experienced what it felt like to be a nouveau riche. Those high-grade spirit grasses and spirit plants were like his own backyard deans. Every single one of them was harvested accurately, and every single one of them was a spirit plant that was over 10,000 years old. What's more, he did not have to do anything himself. The vegetation spirit only had to wave its leaves lightly, and those spirit herbs would fly into the storage bag on their own. Just thinking about the reaction of the three people in the Upper Azure world when they found nothing made him feel that this trip was really worth it. They spent more than a month until their storage bags were full. Only then did they give up harvesting and focus on flying towards the center of the mystic realm. The three of them flew for 4 to 5 days before they finally exited the endless forest. Suddenly, a wasteland appeared in front of them. Compared to the forest before, this place was like the other extreme. There were steep cliffs and strange rocks everywhere. There was not a single bit of green in sight. It was so quiet that not even the sounds of insects and birds could be heard. The spirit chi here is a little strange. I Ching frowned and suddenly said, What do you feel? Lone Moon could also see that there was something strange about this place. He became alert. I'm not sure yet. I Ching shook his head. The spirit chi here was very thick, even thicker than in the forest before. But for some reason, he felt that there was something strange about this spirit chi. There must be something hidden here. Be careful. Lone Moon nodded. He slowed down the speed of his flying sword and flew forward. They flew for a few more hours. They could no longer see anything apart from the rocks, but they did not find anything strange. Don't you feel? Shening suddenly said, a little hot. Chapter 42. What's a vegetation spirit? Shening paused. It looked like a radish no matter how she looked at it. A vegetation spirit is a living thing formed by the accumulation of spirit chi. Lone Moon explained. Spirit herbs and spirit plants have spirit chi in them and live longer than demon beasts, but they cannot develop sentience. However, if it was in a place with an especially large number of spirit plants, the dense with spirit chi might be able to induce the emergence of vegetation spirits among the spirit plants. But the probability is so low that it's negligible. This is my first time seeing a vegetation spirit. Oh, what's the use of that? It's still a radish. Of course it's useful. Lone Moon looked at the vegetation spirit in her hand excitedly. It's formed by the accumulation of spirit chi from spirit plants, so it can sense the existence of all spirit plants in the world. In other words, as long as you bring it with you, you'll know the location of all the spirit plants in this mystic realm. I see. So this was a vegetable version of a GPS. It's said that using the vegetation spirit's flower to refine pills can increase the grade of the pills, I Ching added. It can bloom? Shen Ying's eyes widened. A potted plant? But this vegetation spirit doesn't seem to be in its flowering stage yet. Gigi. The radish in her hand suddenly wriggled excitedly. Shening had no choice but to let go. The moment the vegetation spirit landed on the ground, the entire radish shrunk downwards. Even its body was curled up. The leaves on its head all curled up, as if it was using all its strength. Even its cries turned into squeaks. Gee, air. Was it constipated? Gee. After holding it in for a long time, it suddenly straightened its body, and its leaves spread out. With a puff, a snow-white flower appeared on top of his head. Dandelion. Why did a radish grow a dandelion? Did it mutate? It's blooming, I Ching exclaimed. Gee. The radish curled up its leaves and plucked the dandelion off its head. It handed it to Xining as if to please her. Gee. No. Dandelions were very sticky. This is the thousand leaves vegetation spirit. I Ching was even more shocked. If ordinary vegetation spirits could raise the grade of pills, then the thousand leaves vegetation spirit's flowers were practically synonymous with supreme grade pills. Any pill refined with its flowers would definitely be supreme grade pills. No wonder the Upper Azure world sent traveling immortals to this mystic realm. Lone Moon finally understood what the three of them were looking for in the mystic realm. They're looking for this vegetation spirit? I Ching asked. It should be. Lone Moon nodded. I heard that one of the 4 aristocratic families in the Upper Azure world has cultivators who specialize in refining elixirs. The family's most precious treasure is the thousand leaves vegetation spirit, and it's the only one in the world. Vegetation spirits can't possibly grow in a place suitable for human cultivators. They also need dense with spirit chi, I Ching continued. That's why he thought that there would be some in this mystic realm. That's right. Lone Moon looked at the vegetation spirit on the ground with a complicated expression. It kept raising its flower high, trying to give it to someone. If the three of them knew that the thing they were looking for had been picked up by Xining the moment they entered the mystic realm, would they explode in anger? Great, let's see how they're going to act tough now. Lone Moon's entire body felt good. Even a certain foodie seemed more pleasing to the eye. Xining, how exactly did you make it recognize you as its owner? He was curious. Vegetation spirits were born from gathering spirit chi from heaven and earth. They were extremely arrogant creatures, and it was extremely difficult to tame them. Recognize you as its owner? I didn't. It didn't. Lone Moon looked at it dumbfounded. Why did it follow you if it didn't? And it even took the initiative to bloom flowers to please her. How would I know? It wanted to follow me. Xining looked down at the dandelion on the ground, seeing that she did not want it, and was even working hard to bloom a second flower. She took a step back in disgust. If you like it, I'll give it to you. Me? Lone Moon was shocked. Even the Upper Azure world was trying so hard to get their hands on something. How could she just give it away so easily? Did she know what a vegetation spirit meant? It meant countless spirit herbs and elixirs. Did she still want to increase her cultivation level or not? Wait, it seemed like she really did not need it. Damn. Instead, the vegetation spirit on the ground seemed to understand what the two of them were talking about. Suddenly, it began to wave its leaves anxiously. Gg. The radish was unwilling. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Forget it. I'm not a pill cultivator. What's more, it has already recognized you. Even if I wanted to form a contract with it, I would fail. Oh, Xining still looked indifferent. Why don't we throw it away? Throw it away, my ass. He had said so much for nothing just now, hadn't he? Then what do we do? She did not want to keep carrying a leg pendant. It was very heavy. Let's bring it back first. He turned to look around. It's getting late. There must be other things in this mystic realm. Let's hurry and go to the east. Xining had no objections. I Ching directly summoned his spirit sword and flew up with Xining habitually. Lone Moon was about to fly up on his sword when he felt something heavy on his leg. Looking down, he coincidentally bumped into a leg pendant. GG. The radish was stunned. It looked at the two people in front of it who had already flown away, then looked down at the leg it was hugging. It seemed to have just realized that it had hugged the wrong person. Immediately, it swung its leaves and threw the flower that it was holding onto the ground. It made a small sound. Pooey. Lone Moon. Was he being looked down upon by this radish? He was definitely being looked down upon. You hugged the wrong leg and you're blaming me? Go down if you have the guts. For all? With the vegetation spirit's guidance, Lone Moon finally experienced what it felt like to be a nouveau riche. Those high-level spirit herbs and plants were like his own backyard deans. They were all spirit herbs that were more than 10,000 years old and above. What's more, he did not have to do anything himself. The vegetation spirit only had to wave its leaves lightly, and those spirit herbs would fly into the storage bag on their own. Just thinking about the reaction of the three people in the Upper Azure world when they failed to find anything, he felt that this trip was really worth it. They spent more than a month until their storage bag was full. Only then did they give up harvesting and focus on flying towards the center of the mystic realm. The three of them flew for 4 to 5 days before they finally exited the forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Suddenly, a wasteland appeared in front of them. Compared to the forest from before, this place seemed to be the other extreme. There were steep cliffs and strange rocks everywhere. There was not a single bit of green in sight. It was so quiet that not even the sounds of insects and birds could be heard. The spirit chi here is a little strange. I Ching frowned and suddenly said, "What do you feel?" Lone Moon could also see that there was something strange about this place, and became wary. "I'm not sure yet." I Ching shook his head. The spirit chi here was very thick, even thicker than in the forest from before. However, for some reason, he felt that there was something strange about this spirit chi. There must be something hidden here. Be careful. Lone Moon nodded. He slowed down the speed of his flying sword and flew forward. They flew for a few more hours. They could no longer see anything apart from the rocks. However, they did not find anything strange. "Don't you feel?" Shening suddenly said, "A little hot." Chapter 43. Fellow Taoist, although this 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit is a treasure, it's only a treasure to a core cultivator. You are a sword cultivator. This thing is of no use to you. Why don't you give it to the Xian Yuan family? Qing Lan's expression changed. He smiled and stepped forward. "Don't worry, fellow Taoist. I promise that as long as you give it to us, we will discuss any treasures we find in this immortal palace. We will not make things difficult for you." Lone Moon's expression darkened. He had seen shameless people before, but not to this extent. What he meant was that he wanted them to give the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit to them. What a good plan, fellow Taoist. You want to take the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit we found with empty promises? This vegetation spirit has its own sentience, and might not even follow you. Forgive me for being blunt. He looked at Qing Yin, who seemed to be doing him a favor, and said word by word, "Don't you have any King shame?" The three men's expressions darkened. Qing Yin snorted. "You want to do this the hard way? Let's see what you're capable of. Senior brother, there's no need to waste words with him. Take him down first." With that, he summoned his Dharma artifact and charged forward. Since his threats had failed, he wanted to take it by force. Lone Moon laughed coldly and put the vegetation spirit into his storage bag. As he summoned his weapon, he whispered, "Shening, I'll leave the one in the middle to you later." Shening answered. Lone Moon blocked Qing Yin's attack with his sword. The two rays of sword chi collided, and the remnant sword chi split open the surrounding area. Their cultivation levels were similar, but Lone Moon was a sword cultivator after all. His sword chi was naturally different from that of ordinary cultivators. He forced Qing Yin back a few meters. You overestimate yourself." Traveling immortal Qing Lan frowned and snorted coldly. He glanced at the other cultivator beside him and flew forward to attack as well. I Ching went straight for the other cultivator. As a traveling immortal, Qing Lan did not care about the nascent soul I Ching at all. He followed Qing Yin and charged at Lone Moon, who had the highest cultivation level. Lone Moon had just forced Qing Yin back with his sword when Qing Lan's traveling immortal aura appeared in front of him. The sword was about to land on his opponent. Suddenly, Qing Lan felt something heavy in his hand. The spiritual power he had just condensed dissipated. His hand had been grabbed by someone. He was shocked. Ever since he became a traveling immortal, this was the first time someone had gotten close to him without him noticing. He opened his eyes wide and looked back, only to see a casual face. Who was this person? When did it appear? Before he could figure it out, he saw the woman say casually, she said leave it to me. The kind that gave him money. So please cooperate. Qing Lan subconsciously wanted to retreat. He tried to withdraw his hand, but found that he couldn't. The hand that grabbed him seemed to have grown roots. He repeatedly formed hand seals with one hand, and made a few hand seals, but he found that there was no effect at all. His hand that was grabbed still did not move at all. How was this possible? This woman's cultivation was actually so deep and profound. In the blink of an eye, thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. His heart sank. He had been too careless. He did not expect that a small Middle Azure world would have someone who could subdue a traveling immortal. He gritted his teeth and decisively summoned his intrinsic Dharma artifact. A 3-foot-long golden sword flew directly towards the woman's chest. The woman still did not move. Just as the golden sword was about to pierce through her, there was a cracking sound. The moment the golden sword touched the woman's body, it suddenly broke into thousands of pieces. There was not a single mark on the woman's body. The intrinsic Dharma artifact was connected to his primordial spirit. Qing Lan opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. How was this possible? The woman, on the other hand, patted the broken pieces of the golden sword off her body and frowned impatiently. I'll say it again. You'd better cooperate or else. Her eyes narrowed. She grabbed his hand and suddenly swung it forcefully, throwing him out. I'll beat you up. All Qing Lan heard was a gust of wind beside his ears. His whole body flew like an arrow released from a bow toward the direction of the immortal palace behind him. With a loud crash, he smashed a huge hole in the door of the immortal palace. Only then did he stop. He rolled on the ground that was littered with rubble, unable to get up again. From the moment he was grabbed to the moment he fell to the ground, only a short span of 3 breaths. At that moment, the pitch-black immortal palace suddenly lit up due to the intrusion of an outsider. Immortal music rang out, and immortal chi flourished. 5 colored rays of light filled the entire main hall. An ethereal voice that sounded like an ancient heavenly voice rang out in the hall. The heavens do not abandon us. Today, we finally welcome a fated person who can inherit my mantle and continue my legacy. On the high platform, a translucent immortal soul slowly appeared. His robe was as white as snow, and immortal chi swirled around him. The person who can see through the heaven and earth of the furnace is qualified to enter my sect. I am the remnant soul of the sect master of the Elixir Yang sect, Golden Immortal Bitao. In the past 50,000 years, you are the only person who has entered my immortal palace. Now, I will pass on this alchemy sect to you. I have forgotten that you have cultivated your heart and Tao. You have already achieved enlightenment. With that, he waved his hand, and a strand of immortal chi flew towards the person on the ground who was on his last breath. Qing Lan's entire body also slowly rose up. Although your immortal bones are broken, since we are fated to be, I will help you to break through them first. Just as the immortal soul was about to heal the person's injuries, something suddenly rushed in. The person who had just risen up was stepped back down with a thud. Shening was still stepping on the person. She turned around lazily. What did you just say? The immortal soul. 2 minutes later. The heavens do not abandon us. Today, we finally welcome a fated person who can inherit my mantle and continue my legacy. See through the heaven and earth of the furnace. Are you an NPC? And you have to say your lines from the beginning. The corner of the immortal soul's mouth twitched. He almost could not maintain his sage-like demeanor. Wasn't it all because you suddenly rushed in and interrupted me? How was I supposed to know that there was another person? Oh, you 5, winky face. Oh, but it was an inheritance. It was the same no matter who he passed it to. After all, he had died long ago, and was now only a remnant of his soul. For 50,000 years, you are the only. 2, Shining corrected. The immortal soul glanced at the person on the ground, who was no longer moving. He readily changed his words. Only 2 people who entered the immortal palace. Anyone who can see through the heaven and earth of the furnace is a person with excellent perception. You being able to come here means that we are fated. Oh, you people from the immortal hometown. Is it that easy to meet people who are fated? He seemed to have said the same thing just now. Where's my knife? Anyway, from today onwards, this alchemy sect's legacy is yours. No. From now onwards, you must. What did you say? The immortal soul was stunned. Was this person stupid? This is an inheritance. How can you not want it? Do you know that once you refine the elixirs in the inheritance, you will be able to ascend and become an immortal? So troublesome. She scratched her head. Elixirs and whatnot. I'm not a medical student. I'm not interested. But if you have any recipes, you can give them to me. She could bring them to Chef to study. Recipes. Recipes. The immortal soul was speechless. His legacy of elixirs was not even comparable to recipes. This person must be sick in the head. Unfortunately, he had no other choice. No, you're already here. You have to take this inheritance even if you don't want it. He was rushing to reincarnate. With that said, his figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Shining. He raised his hand and tapped on her forehead, intending to force the inheritance. Huh? Why was there no reaction? So he tapped a few more times, but found that the inheritance could not be transmitted. How is this possible? Do you believe that I won't beat you up if you press any harder? Shining took a step back unhappily. The immortal soul still looked at his hand in disbelief. How could this be? He raised his head and looked carefully at the person in front of him. Suddenly his eyes widened. Damn, you don't have a spirit root. Is this very important? Are you *king kidding me? Without a spirit root, how did you get in here? Hey, for all. Chapter 44. I'm leaving. Shining turned and walked out of the hall. Wait, the immortal soul rushed forward and floated in front of her. As if making an important decision, he gritted his teeth and said, Forget it. It doesn't matter if you don't have a spirit root. I can carve some jade slips or copy them into books. You just have to bring them out. No. She was not a courier. Don't go, little girl. You're already here. Are you sure you don't want to bring something back? Seeing that she was still unmoved, the immortal soul anxiously rushed over and hugged her leg. I've waited for tens of thousands of years, and you came alone. If you don't bring it, who will? If I don't bring the legacy out, I won't be able to rest in peace. Who said I came in alone? Shining suddenly stopped in her tracks. Huh. The immortal soul was stunned and did not react. There are others? Yes. Shining pointed outside, and was just about to answer. Suddenly, there was a loud crash. The door that had a big hole in it finally collapsed. The sky was filled with spirit swords. They flew in and stabbed into the ground. Along with the flying swords, Qingyin fell to the ground with a thud. The arrogant man was now covered in blood and seriously injured. The next wave of spirit swords was about to stab him. Another figure flashed by and pulled the man on the ground up to avoid the next wave of attacks. It was another cultivator from the Upper Azure world. I Ching and Lone Moon had also caught up. Lone Moon was fine, but I Ching had a few more wounds on his body. Thank you, senior brother Qing Yi. Qing Yin took a step back with lingering fear. Qing Yi did not reply. Instead, he glanced coldly at the two people who had caught up with him. His eyes stopped on I Ching. I didn't expect a nascent soul cultivator to have such strength. I was too careless. In an instant, there were 4 more people in the hall. There really were people. That's great. The immortal soul's eyes widened, and he was ecstatic. He stopped hugging Qing Yin's leg, and turned to float toward I Ching. Haha, young cultivator, you and I are fated. Cut the crap. Let's fight. Before he could finish speaking, I Ching had already rushed towards the person in the air again. His sword moved again, and the sky was filled with sword light again. The immortal soul had no choice but to look at Lone Moon. This fated person you. Let's see where you can run to. With a whoosh, Lone Moon also attacked. What kind of a bunch of weirdos were they? Was fighting more important than inheriting the legacy? Was anyone listening to him? The situation in the sky was already very clear. Carrying an injured Qing Yin, Qing Yi had no choice but to dodge the attacks of the two. Lone Moon laughed coldly at the two of them. So the supremacies of the Upper Azure world are only this strong? Isn't it too easy to be an elder of your family? You. Qing Yin was exasperated, but it was true that he was not as skilled as Lone Moon. He could only glare at Lone Moon, his eyes almost piercing daggers. The next moment, I Ching conjured a sky full of spirit swords and chased after the two of them. In an instant, they blocked all their escape routes and attacked the two of them. Holding Qing Yin in one hand, Qing Yi, who had not said anything, suddenly had a solemn expression on his face. In an instant, an aura that was hundreds of times stronger than before exploded from his body. The spiritual swords that were attacking him suddenly stopped 2 feet away from him, and with a clang, they were all shattered into pieces. Puff! I Ching was caught off guard, and was swept by the remaining pressure. Instantly, his qi and blood surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. I Ching! Lone Moon hurriedly retreated. Shening also took 2 steps forward. Are you all right, Master? I Ching wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and looked up at Qing Yi in the air. That person is not at the soul formation stage. That aura just now could not belong to a soul formation cultivator. Lone Moon's heart thumped. He's also a traveling immortal. Shit. They actually deliberately hid their cultivation level. Who would have thought that 2 of the 3 of them were traveling immortals? Ha 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 ha. Qing Yin suddenly laughed wildly. Do you really think that you can defeat us with just a soul formation and a nascent soul? Humph. So what if you're a sword cultivator? In front of a traveling immortal, you're just ants. Wait for my master. Senior brother Qinglan. He was only halfway through his threat when he suddenly saw that there was no movement from the person on the ground. His eyes widened abruptly. Lone Moon also noticed the corpse on the ground. He turned to look at Shening, and silently gave her a thumbs up. This efficiency, she was indeed an ally, worth 2 bags of spirit stones. Senior brother Qinglan, how is this possible? Qing Yin's face was full of disbelief. Who hurt him? Could it be that this immortal palace? He looked around for a long time, but could not find anyone else. Suddenly, he thought of something, and turned to look at the person beside him. Senior brother Qing Yi, could it be that this place? Qing Yi was also stunned, but his eyes were not filled with worry. Instead, he looked around excitedly, his gaze instantly fixed on the front of the main hall, on the 2 eye-catching words, Alchemy Sect. The ancient Danyang sect. Qing Yi's eyes were even more excited as he stared at the words. Ha 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 ha. This place is indeed the immortal palace of the ancient Danyang sect. His expression darkened. Suddenly, he took out something from his robes and looked around. Then, he turned and flew in the direction of the back hall. He slammed the thing in his hand against the wall. Instantly, the entire wall cracked and a passage appeared. It's indeed here. Lone Moon's heart sank. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Stop him. He rushed over and manifested his sword intent. At the same time, I Ching also attacked. 2 beams of sword intent attacked the other party with all their might. Qing Yi looked back and snorted coldly, but he did not retreat. I don't have time to waste on you. He suddenly turned his hand and struck the back of the person beside him, pushing Qing Yin out to meet the 2's full force attack. Senior brother. Qing Yin was completely unprepared. It was too late for him to dodge. He could only look on in disbelief, as he turned into ashes in the sky full of sword intent. Qing Yi had already turned around and disappeared into the wall. The wall also returned to its original appearance. F***CK. Lone Moon cursed. He had thought that the other party would at least try to stop him from entering. He did not expect that in order to enter, he would directly push Qing Yin out to die. The traveling immortals of the Upper Azure world were indeed ruthless. I wonder what's behind this wall. Why would that person be willing to betray the door? Lone Moon glanced at the shining wall in front of him. He subconsciously conjured a few spells and slammed them against the wall, but found that the wall did not react at all. He was stunned. This array formation was immune to spells. Why don't I do it? Shening lifted her foot out of habit. Wait. Thinking of the furnace door that was kicked open earlier, Lone Moon hurriedly pulled her back. All right, Grandaunt. If you kick it, I think the entire immortal palace will collapse. Oh. Shening retracted her foot. She would not kick it. She was too lazy to move. This wall seems to be an ancient array formation. You need a token to enter. Lone Moon thought of the item that Qingyi had taken out just now. He carefully studied the array formation in front of him again. The eye of this array is constantly changing and is connected to the entire Immortal Palace. If you do not have the right way to break the array, you may destroy the entire Immortal Palace along with it. It's a pity that this array formation has long been lost. No one knows how to break it. Someone might know. Shening raised her hand. The two of them were stunned. Suddenly, she turned around and waved toward the hall. You, Floaty, come here for a moment. Chapter 45. The immortal soul's entire body twitched. He said angrily, "You little doll, you are so rude. I am Golden Immortal Bitao. Although this is just a remnant soul, it is still an immortal soul, all right." What the hell was a floaty soul? Was he an ordinary floaty soul? He was an immortal floaty soul. Oh, I know. Float over here for a moment. Do I have to go over just because you asked me to? Bitao snorted coldly. He had no intention of floating over. He had emotions too. Master, it is? I Ching paused. Remnant souls were not easy to detect. What's more, the palace was filled with immortal qi. They really did not notice that there was a remnant soul in the palace. Oh, he said that he has been waiting here for tens of thousands of years, Shining explained casually. He insisted on giving me the inheritance, but he did not succeed. Inheritance? Lone Moon was shocked. He looked at the remnant soul in disbelief, and then at Shining. He can't be the owner of this immortal palace, can he? He focused and saw that the remnant soul was indeed surrounded by immortal qi. This really was an immortal soul. You little doll. You have good taste. Bitao floated over satisfied. He looked Lone Moon up and down and said, I am indeed the owner of this immortal palace, the sect master of the Koryang sect. My Dao name is Bitao. Holy shit, it really is him. Although you are a sword cultivator, you have a supreme grade fire spirit root. Not bad. You have a good aptitude for alchemy. Bitao looked Lone Moon up and down satisfied. He stroked his beard and changed back to his sage-like appearance. Little doll, you and I are fated to be here. Well, how do we get rid of the array on the wall? Shening interrupted him. You are really infuriating. Bitao, who had been interrupted again, was furious. Do you know how to respect your elders? Choosing a successor is a very important matter. This is not as important as a mere array. You have no spirit root and did not want to accept this inheritance. I did not make things difficult for you. Now that someone else can inherit it, why do you have to be unjust? It's not me. This old man has waited for 50,000 years, forcefully holding on to a strand of my remnant soul, all for the sake of inheriting my Koryang sect's alchemy arts. Naturally, it's up to the capable to accept it. I think this person is very good. Wait, you. I know you want to chase after that cultivator, but why are you in such a hurry? As long as one of you accepts the legacy, ascension to immortality is just around the corner. There's no need to fear him in the future. Actually, everything has its priorities. Think about how many alchemy geniuses our Koryang sect has produced in the 10,000 years since its founding. In the end, they couldn't escape the fate of destruction. However, the legacy of this sect couldn't be broken. Today I will pass on this to Peng. Before he could finish speaking, he felt a pain in his face, and his immortal soul was directly punched out. He rolled repeatedly on the ground like a salted fish, his mouth still uttering the unfinished sentence. You. Along the way, he crashed into a wall and stopped. Shut up. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. She quickly walked over and picked up the weightless Bitao from the ground. Now can you open the door? His handsome immortal face was now red and swollen, the size of a fist. Against his white robes, it looked especially bright. A while later, yes, great immortal. Leave it to me, great immortal. I Ching. Lone Moon. What was going on? Why did he not feel surprised at all? Bitao scrambled to his feet and floated obediently to the wall. He began to seriously dispel the array. What a terrifying woman. Lone Moon had thought that she was a mortal with no spirit roots. He did not expect her to be able to hit even spirits. This person must be a great immortal from the upper world. She must be. As he trembled, "Ahem, that exalted immortal. May I know what is behind this wall?" Lone Moon suddenly felt that this person was a little pitiful. Bitao was the owner of this immortal palace, so he should be very familiar with this place. Inside is. Bitao glanced at Shining and trembled again. He immediately dropped the long lines that he had said earlier, and answered quickly and concisely. "The elixir storage room. It's where I kept my elixirs when I was alive." Elixirs? Lone Moon paused. Could it be that Qing Yi was after one of the elixirs inside? But he was already a traveling immortal, and his cultivation level was stagnant. What kind of elixir could make him so excited? Bitao continued to dispel the array as he said, "I think that person's goal is most likely the immortal transformation pill inside." "There are immortal transformation pills here," Lone Moon exclaimed. "When I was alive." Bitao looked at Shining weakly and replied, "I think I kept a few." "What's an immortal transformation pill?" Shining asked. Lone Moon's expression darkened. After a while he said, "An immortal transformation pill is an immortal medicine that can repair immortal bones. It can only be found in the immortal realm. In ancient times, before the three realms were separated, the people who became immortals lived in the same land. This is an ancient immortal palace. That's why it has." "Why does he want it?" "Because he's a traveling immortal." I Ching's expression darkened as well. He continued to explain, "Master, the so-called traveling immortals are people who have failed to ascend to immortality. But they are also people who have gone through the heavenly tribulation. When they go through the heavenly tribulation, their immortal bones will be formed. But if they fail the heavenly tribulation, their immortal bones will be destroyed by the heavenly lightning. That's why traveling immortals have no chance of ascending to immortality. But the immortal transformation pill can repair immortal bones. That means he can become an immortal after eating it." "Yes." I Ching nodded. "No." The more Lone Moon thought about it, the more anxious he became. "We can't let him get the immortal transformation pill. Otherwise, we really won't be able to get out." There had never been a real immortal in the three azure realms. Bitao was just a remnant of an immortal's soul. Yet he could survive in this immortal palace for tens of thousands of years, and still maintain a level of power that even they could not detect. No one knew how powerful a real immortal could be. Although they had Shining as a cheat, they still did not stand much of a chance against an immortal. Done. Bitao was finally done with the array. The wall opened up once again. A moment later, it turned into a door. Behind the door was a huge storage room. There were rows of shelves that looked like bookshelves everywhere. Each shelf held one or two bottles of different colors. The few of them walked in to take a look. A few pill shelves had already been overturned. Many bottles and jars were rolling on the floor. In midair, Qing Yi was holding a bottle in his hand. He was laughing maniacally. "I didn't expect you to come in here. It's a pity, you're too late. I've already found the immortal transformation pill." He excitedly poured out the pill from the bottle and swallowed it. Then he crushed the empty bottle in his hand. His eyes were filled with excitement at the prospect of becoming an immortal. Soon I'll be able to ascend to immortality. Ha 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 ha. In the next moment, the spirit chi on his body skyrocketed, and even the dense celestial chi in the surroundings surged. His cultivation began to soar at a speed visible to the naked eye. Holy shit! Lone Moon cursed under his breath. He did not expect that he would not make it in time. "Let's get out of here." They had no choice but to leave now. He grabbed Xinying's hand and tried to turn around, but he could not. "Well, I have a question." "What questions do you have now?" "Escaping is more important. They could not possibly defeat an immortal. Let's go while he's still raising his cultivation level." "No." Shining did not move. "Didn't Drifter say that he refined the immortal transformation pill 50,000 years ago?" "That's right. So what? It's been so long. Won't it expire?" "Huh." Lone Moon paused. Before he could react, he heard a strange gurgling sound coming from behind him. Qing Yi's cultivation level was still rising rapidly, but the spirit chi on his body suddenly dissipating completely. "See, he's having a stomachache," Shining said seriously. "Lone Moon, I Ching, Bitao." Chapter 46. How? How is this possible? Qing Yi's face was filled with disbelief. His expression was one of panic, as if he was trying to stop his cultivation from dropping. However, no matter how hard he tried, the spiritual qi still dissipated, and his cultivation returned to its original state. No. No, this is impossible. This is clearly the immortal ascension pill. This is clearly it. Lone Moon casually picked up one of the pill bottles and looked at it. Only then did he realize that the sealing array on the bottle had long disappeared. Without the protection of the array, as time passed, the pills inside would naturally lose the effects they should have. It seemed that no matter how strong an array was, it was useless against time. It was no wonder that they had been able to enter the immortal palace so easily. There was not even an array formation on the door to stop them. The only array formation in the entire hall that worked was the one in the elixir storage room. Bitao's immortal soul was nearby, and the array formation was maintained by his immortal power. Qing Yi, who had completely lost his immortal ascension dream, was in a frenzy. He grabbed a few bottles of pills and swallowed them. When he realized that none of them worked, he glared at the three people at the door. "It's you. What did you do?" His entire face contorted. His eyes were so fierce that he looked like he wanted to bite a piece of flesh off of them. "The three of them. You ate expired pills and you're blaming us?" Qing Yi's gaze suddenly landed on Lone Moon. As if he had thought of something, his eyes cleared up and became filled with greed. "That's right, the vegetation spirit, and the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit. As long as I have that, I can refine another immortal ascension pill." The recipe for the immortal ascension pill was not a secret in the Azure world. That was because it required immortal herbs, not spirit herbs. Immortal herbs could no longer be found in the 3 Azure worlds. That was why he had set his sights on the storage room of the immortal palace. But the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit could sense all the spirit herbs and immortal herbs in the world. Perhaps he could really find the ingredients he wanted. "Give me the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit." He suddenly turned and summoned a fire dragon, which flew towards the three of them. The fire burned all the pills in the room to ashes. Out of habit, Lone Moon summoned a protective barrier. Shening frowned, but I Ching stepped forward and waved his sword. Sword chi exploded from his body, forming a huge sword that cut the fire dragon in half. "Master." He suddenly turned to look at Shening, his eyes filled with determination. "Please leave this person to me. I will not bring shame to the sect." "You're crazy." Before Shening could answer, Lone Moon spoke first. "Although he did not become an immortal, he is still a traveling immortal. You can't beat him at all." Sword cultivators were powerful, and I Ching was the most powerful sword cultivator he had ever seen. I Ching could single-handedly challenge a soul formation cultivator with his nascent soul cultivation. But the key was that the other party was a traveling immortal. When it's time to use a cheat, use it. "Brother." "Master, please grant me my wish." I Ching did not even look at him. He looked straight at Shening. Lone Moon would deal with Qing Yin, Master would deal with Qing Lan, and he would deal with Qing Yi. Now that Qing Yin and Qing Lan had been executed, only Qing Yi remained. He was his master's only disciple. No matter what, he had to complete this mission. "All right, all the best." Shening nodded. "Yes, master." I Ching turned around and charged at Qing Yi in the next moment. "Wait." Lone Moon turned to look at Shening, then at a certain person who did not care about his own life. Hey. Shening. You're not really going to let him fight Qing Yi alone, are you? Your disciple has a hole in his head. Don't mess around with him, okay?" Shening said nonchalantly. "He's been apprenticed to me for so long. Just treat it as his homework." "To hell with your homework. Do the two of you have to be so unreliable? Don't make it sound like you've really taught him before. He's just a nascent soul." "Will he really?" "Father Niao." She suddenly patted his shoulder and interrupted him. That lazy face of hers had a rare look of seriousness. "You have to believe him." Lone Moon hesitated. For some reason he calmed down. I Ching and Qing Yi were already locked in battle. The sky was filled with sword light. One was crazy, the other was fighting with his life on the line. Both of them were fighting with all their might. This was a battle between high-level cultivators. In a short while, not only the pill storage room, but the entire immortal palace was starting to shake. Lone Moon and Shining had no choice but to retreat to the grass patch where the tripod was placed. The moment they came out, they heard a loud crash. The immortal palace had already collapsed. Two figures flew out from inside and into the sky. Several fire dragons had already appeared behind Qingyi. As if they had come to life, they roared and pounced toward I Ching. Meanwhile, I Ching was surrounded by spirit swords. Sword Chi shot up into the sky. In an instant, the swords turned into a rain of swords. Again and again, they attacked the fire dragons, creating a rain of fire. A mere nascent soul cultivator really thinks he can defeat me. The fire dragons were destroyed one after another. Qingyi seemed to be angry. His expression darkened and his hand seals changed. Immediately, the scattered fire embers began to burn wildly. In an instant, they turned into a sea of fire, engulfing the entire immortal palace. Red Lotus Karmic Fire. Lone Moon was shocked. He hurriedly set up several array formations around him. He did not expect Qingyi to be able to summon the Red Lotus Karmic Fire. I Ching was in for a tough battle. As expected, the moment the sea of fire appeared, the spirit swords around I Ching turned into ashes and began to counterattack. I Ching immediately changed his sword technique. He recalled thousands of spirit swords and formed a sword wall around him. The wall rotated clockwise, using the sword chi to repel the flames. However, it could not stop the flames from approaching him. Qingyi's hand seals changed again. Suddenly, a fire dragon appeared in the sea of fire. Compared to the previous one, this one was many times bigger. The flames on its body were as red as blood. It looked like it was going to set the sky on fire. Suddenly, the surroundings were filled with red light. The fire dragon roared. The sound of its roar shook the ground. The fire dragon shot up into the sky, opened its mouth and flew toward I Ching. I Ching's expression darkened. He stopped his sword technique and gave up on defense. He used all the spirit chi in his body to form a huge golden sword that reached the sky. What a strong sword intent! Lone Moon was shocked. To be able to form such a huge sword, was I Ching really just a nascent soul cultivator? Maybe he really could. Both sides used their full strength. Victory or defeat would be decided by this blow. The huge sword fell, and the fire dragon roared. The huge amount of spirit chi collided with each other. In an instant, a blinding white light exploded. The impact immediately turned the entire immortal palace into ashes. Lone Moon had no choice but to pull Shin-Ing behind the alchemy furnace and use the strength of the immortal artifact to avoid the wave of impact. The light lasted for half a minute before dimming. The two people in the air had already landed on the ground. Qingyi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured. I Ching's condition was even worse. The sword in his hand was broken. His whole body was covered in blood. There were burn marks all over his body. He could not stand steadily and knelt down on one knee. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. The word tragic could not describe his condition. Chapter 47. Holy shit! I Ching's heart skipped a beat. He would have to be crazy to believe Shen Ying's words. Neither master nor disciple could be trusted. Hey! I Ching, are you still alive? No matter how powerful he was, there was no way he could win against I Ching, who was 2 whole realms apart. You're a sword cultivator indeed. Kid, you do have some skills. Qingyi pressed a hand to his chest and stood up shakily. He looked at I Ching, who was covered in blood, warily. If you were a little stronger today, a soul formation cultivator. No, maybe a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. I would have died in your hands. That strike just now had actually broken through his Red Lotus Hellfire. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation level was low, and he didn't have enough spiritual energy, he would have died under that strike. Master! I Ching moved and turned to look at Shen-Ing, his eyes full of guilt and indignation. I'm sorry, your disciple is not good enough. I didn't win against him. Oh, it's okay. Shen-Ing glanced at him, and subconsciously put her hand on his head. She thought for a moment and added, Don't worry. You won't get points deducted if you don't finish your homework. But even my sword. He picked up the broken sword in his hand. It was a shame for a sword cultivator to have his sword broken. It's okay. Actually, Shining tilted her head. Before she could answer, Qingyi suddenly took 2 steps forward and stared at I Ching. I really can't let you go on like this. Otherwise, there will be endless trouble. With that said, he endured the pain on his body and summoned the huge dragon formed by the karmic fire again. He charged toward the 3 of them. Today, you must die here. The fire dragon left a trail of scorched earth in its wake. Just as it was about to engulf the 3 of them, Shining frowned. She dropped her hand from I Ching's head and took the broken sword from his hand. She waved it in the direction of the fire dragon. Shut up. Suddenly, there was a loud rumble. Qingyi only felt a white light that seemed to connect the heavens, and the earth brushed past his sword. The fire dragon instantly disappeared, and the ground under his feet suddenly sank. Turning around, he saw that the entire Immortal Palace secret territory had been cut in half. What is this? Kacha, kacha, kacha. A series of cracking sounds came from all around. Cracks appeared on the ground, the palace, and even the sky, and they began to extend in all directions. The entire mystic realm seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Don't interrupt when others are talking, Shining said word by word. Qingyi. What just happened? F***ck Lone Moon jumped up. Shining, can you take it easy? Why did you attack this mystic realm for no reason? This was bad. This was such a good ancient mystic realm. She might not even be able to use it now. You're blaming me? Shining rolled her eyes. It was clearly this place that was too fragile. F***ck. Masta? I Ching stared blankly at the sword in her hand. The sword was clearly broken. It could no longer be considered a weapon. Why? Why was Master still able to use such a powerful technique? Huh? Shining was stunned. She followed his gaze to the sword in her hand. What did he mean? Why is Master still able to use this sword? His eyes were filled with curiosity. This sword was clearly broken. No one could use any sword techniques. Your disciple wants to know, where exactly am I lacking? Shining stiffened. Was he asking his teacher because he did not finish his homework? Shining coughed. Her eyes darted around before she said seriously, well, swordplay is about becoming one with the sword. You don't have a sword in your hand, but you have a sword in your heart. The sword is just a medium. Even a flower or a tree can be a sword. Che plagiarist. Lone Moon rolled his eyes. He exposed her directly, plagiarizing lines from martial arts novels again. Have some shame. Don't listen to her nonsense. There is no sword in the hand, but there is a sword in the heart. No way. You really believe that? Where's your IQ? Becoming one with the sword. I Ching's body suddenly exploded with a huge amount of sword qi. The spirit qi in the surroundings began to rush into his body. In an instant, it filled up his already depleted dantian. The wounds on his body began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even his cultivation level began to increase. Holy shit. That works too. Damn it. Do you have to have an epiphany just by listening to me? Even a diehard fan doesn't have to be so professional, right? Do you think epiphanies are something your fans do? Master, I understand now. He suppressed the rapid growth of his cultivation level and turned to bow to Shining. Then, he flew directly towards Qingyi. At this moment, he did not have any Dharma artifacts in his hands. Yet, thousands of spirit swords appeared around him. His sword intent was 100 times stronger than before. Qingyi's karmic fire of the Red Lotus could no longer hurt him. He had already suppressed his cultivation level to the nascent soul stage. Qingyi was still a traveling immortal. Yet the 2 of them seemed to have swapped positions. Now it was I Ching who was suppressing Qingyi. Lone Moon. He felt like he understood less and less this stupid world. Fine. Do whatever you want. I don't care anymore. Hayan. I'm so tired. Father Neo watch. I'm going to take a nap. Shining stretched lazily and suddenly spoke. Sleep my ass. Do you have any hobbies other than eating and sleeping? Is the person fighting over there your own disciple? Wait a minute. You just agreed to let I Ching choose. Don't tell me it's because you're too tired to move. A while later. The weather is so good today. What are we having for lunch? Why are you hesitating? It's true, right? You're King lazy, aren't you? For all. I Ching's counterattack took less than half an hour to finish off Qing Yi. He had suppressed his cultivation level to its limit. Perhaps it was because the spirit qi in this immortal palace was too thick. I Ching's epiphany ended in less than 4 hours. His cultivation level rose from the nascent soul stage to the soul formation stage. He caught up with Lonmun's cultivation level in an instant. Lonmun could only curse at this. Hashtag. Convex, you can't cheat like this. It's one thing for the master to cheat, but why is the disciple like this too? How long has it been? He went from a golden core stage cultivator to a soul formation stage cultivator. This is 2F** King illogical. He felt that ever since the master and disciple appeared, his originally smooth sailing and talented immortal path became more and more ridiculous. He felt like he was picked up by the heavens. Master. When I Ching woke up from his epiphany, Shening had already woken up from her afternoon nap. Thank you, Master, for your guidance. Your disciple's cultivation level has improved a little. Haha. Lonmun wanted to slap the two of them in the face. This was called improved a little. This step was like pulling his balls, alright? Shening nodded seriously. Can we cook now? Yes, Master, no problem, Master. The orphan. Damn it, a pair of retards. Chapter 48. They had barbecued spirit beast meat for lunch. I Ching had developed the habit of picking up spirit beast corpses. He even used the leftover karmic fire of the red lotus to barbecue the meat. Lonmun silently lit a candle for Qing Yi, who had died with his eyes wide open. But the meat he barbecued was really King delicious. After finishing his 5th steak, Lonmun started to worry about his future. Ever since he met foodie Shening, even Lonmun, who had abstained from food for many years, had been awakened by the gluttonous instinct hidden in every Chinese. If this went on, he did not know when he would be able to achieve success. Trash Shening, you ruined my path to immortality and prevented me from ascending. ***. Convex another piece. After the meal, the originally beautiful immortal palace had almost collapsed. Shenying's sword had already destroyed the foundation of the immortal palace. The entire immortal palace had now collapsed, leaving only a small area around the alchemy furnace. Where do we go next? Shening looked at Lonmun. You're the boss, you should speak. There are no other treasures here. Lonmun turned back to look at the alchemy furnace. The immortal palace had collapsed and the pills in the treasury had lost their effectiveness. The most valuable thing in this ancient mystic realm was probably the vegetation spirit. There was no need for them to continue. Let's go into the furnace and take a look. Once the 3 months are up, we'll go back. Please wait. The 3 of them were just about to move when Bitao suddenly floated out of nowhere. What about the legacy? My 2 friends, are you interested in accepting it? Lonmun's heart skipped a beat. He had almost forgotten about the immortal soul. This was the legacy of an ancient immortal sect. Who knew how many lost pill recipes there were? Speaking of which, you've been doing this all the way here. What exactly is the legacy? Shening asked. Bitao's eyes lit up at her question. He obediently floated closer and said, Great Immortal, this legacy contains all the pill recipes of our Danyang sect, as well as our pill-making experience and so on. 50,000 years ago, our Danyang sect was the most famous immortal sect. There were countless alchemists in our sect. Many immortals came to our sect just to get a single pill. Oh, so the legacy was a complete set of life skills. Great Immortal, I guarantee that no matter which of your 2 subordinates receives my inheritance, they will become famous pill refiners. You can easily refine the pills in the storage room. The corner of Lonmun's mouth twitched. Hey, when did he become Shenying's subordinate? However, this inheritance was indeed very tempting. Shening blinked. She didn't seem to be moved at all. Suddenly she thought of something. Are you sure that the inheritance contains top-grade pill recipes from 50,000 years ago? Of course. Any one of them is a supreme treasure. Oh, it's been so long. Won't it be outdated? Bitao was stunned. Look. Shening started to explain seriously. Times are developing, and so are times. These technologies of yours have been around for 50,000 years. No matter how you look at it, they should have been innovated a dozen times in the outside world, right? Although it's not as exaggerated as digital products, which change every day, it's still possible for it to change every few years, or even every few hundred years, right? After all, 50,000 years is enough for us to go from the Stone Age to socialism. Bitao. Lone Moon. I Ching. Although he didn't understand what Bitao was saying, but why did he feel like vomiting blood? The top-grade pill recipes of the Danyang sect. Were they really outdated? Fellow Taoists. He turned stiffly to look at the two people beside him. Would you be willing to accept? Before he could finish speaking, Lone Moon and I Ching both took a huge step back. Can you not be so realistic? It's an ancient inheritance after all. Can you not be so disgusted? Fellow Taoists, if either of you is willing to accept this inheritance, Bitao looked around. Finally, he gritted his teeth and pointed to the alchemy furnace beside him. I will give you the deviant fire in this furnace. What do you think? No matter what, he had to get this inheritance out of this place. Otherwise, he would not be able to die in peace. The fire in this furnace. Shening started to speak. Lone Moon and I Ching's faces paled. They stepped forward and covered her mouth. Please, ancestor. Can you let this mystic realm go? In the end, Lone Moon accepted the alchemy inheritance. The immortal soul kept its word, and kept the deviant fire in the furnace. Lone Moon divided the deviant fire into 2 portions, and gave one to I Ching. Although I Ching did not refine pills, he was quite knowledgeable about refining weapons. This deviant fire was very strong, and could be used to refine weapons. An inheritance from 50,000 years ago could not even compare to a furnace of alchemy fire. Lone Moon carefully looked at the inheritance. It was exactly as Shening had said. Apart from some of the lost pill recipes, more than 80% of the pills in the inheritance were outdated. The pills produced by the existing pill recipes were not only more effective, but also easier to find. It was as if he had obtained a textbook that had long since broken away from the current era. It was completely useless. The key was that some of the lost pill recipes were already available in the Azure world. Some of the ingredients were already extinct. For example, the immortal transformation pill. Therefore, after a lot of editing, there were not many that could be used. After looking through it once, he carved the pill recipes in the inheritance into a jade slip. He planned to return it to Shiqiu and store it in the Dharma depository for his disciples to look through. This would satisfy Bitao's desire to inherit the inheritance. In the following days, they stayed in the mystic realm for more than a month. Lone Moon used this time to refine the deviant fire. The deviant fire was very strong. It took him a lot of effort to subdue it. Perhaps it was because there was immortal chi nearby. After he succeeded, even his cultivation, which had not improved for many years, showed signs of loosening. But before he could rejoice, he turned to look at I Ching, who woke up on time every day to cook, refine the deviant fire, and even planned to build a house for Shening while he was meditating. I Ching's blood rushed to his head. Damn it, comparisons were odious. He was definitely a child adopted by the heavens. I Ching was the real one. Let's go back. He picked up the glass hearts on the ground and left the ancient mystic realm. He did not even have the mood to greet anyone else. He flew all the way back to Black Heaven sect. He brought Shening and her disciple to the main hall of the main peak. Shiqiu took out the spirit herbs that he had picked up in the mystic realm. He smiled like a 200-pound child. There are so many 10,000-year-old spirit herbs. Uncle Master and I Chingjin must have worked hard. Shiqiu stopped mid-sentence. He looked at I Ching as if he had seen a ghost. You, how did your cultivation? He had left the mystic realm as a nascent soul cultivator. How did he return as a soul formation cultivator? Was he blind? He had an epiphany in the mystic realm. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Another epiphany. Didn't he just have an epiphany? This was too fast. Shiqiu suppressed the shock in his heart. He thought about it carefully. That was an ancient mystic realm. Perhaps he had obtained some kind of opportunity. He hurriedly bowed to I Ching. Congratulations, Supremacy I Ching. I Ching nodded in response. Oh yes, Shichio suddenly remembered something. I wonder if the Upper Azure World. He was just about to ask about Qin when he suddenly felt a movement under his feet. The entire Black Heaven sect shook, and a red light lit up outside. Protective Mountain Array. In that instant, the Protective Mountain Array had been activated. Shichio's face turned pale. He exchanged a look with Lone Moon. Something's wrong. The two of them flashed out of the main hall. Shining and Yiqing hurriedly followed. The entire Black Heaven sect had been surrounded by the activated mountain barrier formation, and not far away from the formation, there was a gigantic lotus floating in the air. Hundreds of unfamiliar cultivators stood on top of the lotus, each of them dressed in green and white robes, and all of them looked down with unfriendly expressions. An angry male voice sounded. How dare a small sect hurt the people of the Xianyuan family? Quickly hand over the murderer of the 3 elders. Otherwise, we will wash this place with blood. Chapter 49. After the people in the air gave a warning, a few people flew out and began to form seals. Soon, a bright red light shone, and a glaring light shot towards the Protective Mountain Array. After a while, there was a loud clang, and a few cracks appeared on the array. The cultivators did not stop attacking. Instead, they became fiercer, and the entire Black Heaven sect was filled with the sound of collisions. Shichio's face turned pale. This group of people actually attacked the Protective Mountain Array as soon as they arrived. It looked like they were going to start a massacre. In a moment, all the Black Heaven sect disciples flew out and gathered in front of the main hall, looking at the sky in panic. Even the hall masters of the various halls were present. Senior brother, what is this? Hall Master Shichen stepped forward and asked anxiously. I'm not sure either. Shichio's heart sank. He turned and pulled a disciple over. Quickly go to Ling Xiao Peak and inform the 2 supremacies, Yi Xing and Yu Yang. Ask them to come out of seclusion immediately. No need. Just as he finished speaking, 2 white figures landed. We're already here. They had already noticed such a huge commotion. Greetings, Uncle Masters. Everyone bowed in unison. Yu Yang nodded and frowned at the people in the air. What's going on? Why are the people of the Xianyuan family from the Upper Azure World suddenly here? They even looked like they were going to fight. Everyone looked confused. Lone Moon frowned, stepped forward and said in a low voice, Senior brother, I think this group of people is here for me. Junior brother Lone Moon. The 2 supremacies were shocked, and were about to ask in detail. Not far away, the Protective Mountain Array was broken with a loud bang. The huge lotus flew straight towards the main hall, and stopped in the air not far in front of the main hall. Looking at the 100 cultivators on it, everyone could not help but gasp. There were more than 10 soul formation cultivators, and the 5 leading them were traveling immortals. The rest were either nascent soul or golden core cultivators. There was not a single cultivator below the golden core level. Even if all the high-level cultivators in the Middle Azure World were put together, they would not be able to gather such a lineup. Shichio's heart sank. He was even more fearful of the Upper Azure World's strength. Seeing that the other party had no intention of starting a fight, as the sect master, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. Fellow Taoists from the Upper Azure World, I apologize for not welcoming you earlier. But why did you destroy my protective mountain formation? Stop pretending. A soul formation cultivator on the right took a step forward. Judging from his voice, it was the one who had shouted earlier. 3 elders of the Xianyuan family came to this realm out of goodwill, to help you find out the truth of the newly emerged mystic realm. But you didn't know what was good for you, and used some despicable means to kill them in the mystic realm. As one of the 4 great clans of the Upper Azure World, shouldn't the Xianyuan clan be here to collect this blood debt from you? As soon as he said that, not only Shichio, but most of the cultivators' faces darkened. They turned to look at Lone Moon, and immediately guessed what was going on. Most of the disciples had seen how the 3 people from the Upper Azure World behaved when they arrived. He claimed that he was here to help them explore the pocket dimension, but in the end, it turned out that he was here to snatch resources. It was likely that he had attacked quite a few cultivators from the various sects in the pocket dimension, But the result was obvious. They had kicked an iron plate, and were killed instead. There were many mystic realms in the 3 azure realms. As many mystic realms had restrictions on the number of people who could enter, mystic realms were recognized as places outside of the law. Moreover, the Dharma treasures in the mystic realms were all ownerless. It was normal for several people to discover the same opportunity at the same time. Hence, it was common for people to snatch resources in the mystic realms. Naturally, those who were capable would get what they wanted. Grudges that happened in the mystic realm would not affect the outside world. On the surface, the various sects maintained such a tacit understanding. But the Xian Yuan family's actions today were a little ridiculous. Did it mean that only the upper azure world was allowed to kill people in the mystic realm, and others couldn't even resist? Fellow Taoists, the mystic realm is dangerous. It's normal for accidents to happen. Have you all made a mistake? Shi Qiu suppressed the anger in his heart, and reminded them in a low voice. You're still quibbling. The man suddenly raised his hand, and produced 2 water mirrors. As he conjured a seal, he said loudly, "The people of the Xian Yuan family will plant a soul-tracking seal in their divine consciousness when they enter the sect. This seal will only be activated when they die, and the image of the victim will be transmitted back to the sect." As soon as he finished speaking, images appeared on the 2 water mirrors. One was of Qing Yin before he died, the other was of Qing Yi before he died. However, the same person appeared in both water mirrors. One was standing there with a look of surprise on his face, while the other was holding a golden longsword and exuding a murderous aura. That was I Ching. At that moment, all eyes turned to I Ching. "What else do you have to say? He's the one who killed the 3 elders." The man turned to point at I Ching in front of the main hall, and said angrily, "If you don't hand over the murderer and all the people who entered the mystic realm that day, then there's no need for your sect to exist anymore. I've seen unreasonable people, but I've never seen someone this unreasonable." Lone Moon could not help but step forward. It was obviously the Xian Yuan family who was greedy and wanted to monopolize the ancient mystic realm. In the end, not only did you fail to monopolize it, you even wanted to seek revenge in the mystic realm. The mystic realm has always been dangerous, and they suffered the consequences of their own failure. How dare you come here to seek justice? The dignified Xian Yuan family is actually such a sore loser. Humph. A cold snort came from the other side. Suddenly, the suppressive force of the traveling immortals covered the sky and the earth. In an instant it filled the entire main peak. Lone Moon and the others were already prepared, so it was fine. Some of the lower-level disciples fell straight to the ground, vomiting blood. Lone Moon panicked. Just as he was about to step forward, Yu Yang held him back. "Seeing your brother. Don't be rash." The Black Heaven sect did not have the strength to fight them at all. The suppressive force only appeared for a moment. In the next moment it was retracted. The middle-aged cultivator in the middle of the 5 traveling immortals stepped forward and scanned the crowd. His gaze paused on I Ching for a moment. A hint of fear flashed across his eyes. Then he said, "Fellow Taoist, what you said is not without reason. The mystic realm is dangerous. Opportunities and circumstances really depend on one's own fate. There is no reason to continue seeking revenge after coming out. At least not on the surface." Third uncle. The soul formation cultivator who shouted panicked. He seemed to want to say something, but was stopped by a cold look from the other party. The traveling immortal put his hands behind his back and said with a strong sense of righteousness, "There are still many things that are unclear about this matter. We are here just to investigate thoroughly. If it was just an ordinary dispute over opportunities, we would not have come here with such great fanfare." "What do you mean?" Lone Moon frowned. He had a bad feeling about this. The man laughed softly. His eyes narrowed and he said in a low voice, "When the 3 elders entered the mystic realm that day, in order to make it easier for them to explore the mystic realm, they specially asked the family master to give them the Xian Yuan family's treasure to accompany them. Now that the 3 elders are dead and the treasure is missing, shouldn't we be here to clarify things? What's more, among the 3 elders, 2 of them were traveling immortals." He looked at I Ching meaningfully. In this world, I'm afraid the only person who could kill the three of them in succession, apart from the perfected immortals of the upper world, is someone with a peerless treasure. So please, fellow Taoist, return the Xian Yuan family's heirloom, the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit. Holy shit! Lone Moon instantly understood their motive. Damn it! The Xian Yuan family's method of getting something for nothing was really getting better and better. Chapter 50. Lone Moon was truly disgusted by these brazen bandits. These people were clearly here for the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit. They did not care how the three elders had died at all. They just wanted to use this as an excuse to cause trouble for the Black Heaven sect. Fellow Taoist, you must have proof before you speak, Lone Moon said in a low voice. You said that you brought a treasure into the mystic realm, so you took it with you? When the three elders pleaded with the family head, many of the disciples could testify. They were all from the Xian Yuan family, and cannot be used as proof. Also, even if someone brought the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit out, how can you prove that it belongs to the Xian Yuan family, and was not originally part of the mystic realm? What a joke! The man snorted. Everyone in the Upper Azure world knows that the Xian Yuan family has many core cultivators. The only Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit in the world is our family's heirloom. Holy shit! We're all Thousand Leaves vegetation spirits born with the surname Xian Yuan. The man turned to look at I Ching. Fellow Taoist, opportunities in the mystic realm are up to fate, but the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit is not like those ownerless treasures in the mystic realm. Fellow Taoist, please return it. With that said, he took 2 steps towards I Ching. I did not take anything from you. I Ching took a step forward and said in a low voice, I did kill Ching Yi, but he was the one who wanted to kill me and steal my treasure. You didn't take it. The Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit was with the 3 elders. Who else could it be if not you? Do you dare to let me search your soul and see if you have seen the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit? You. Lone Moon was exasperated. Soul searching was he deemed treacherous sorcery. Although it could search through the memories of the other party, it was directly used on the soul. The person whose soul was searched would either die or be crippled. What was the difference between his words and blatantly saying that he wanted to kill someone? Or, he swept his gaze across the crowd. Do you really want to wait for us to massacre everyone here, and then come back to look for our family's heirloom? With that said, he released his suppressive aura once again, and the people he had brought with him all drew their weapons. Everyone from the Black Heaven sect panicked. Even Shi Qiu and Yu Yang turned to look at I Ching suspiciously. Lone Moon was exasperated. For the first time, he felt an unspeakable grievance. The Xian Yuan family had come with ill intentions, and they had no intention of letting the Black Heaven sect off so easily. They were just using the vegetation spirit as an excuse to vent their anger. As for whether or not I Ching had the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit on him, they did not care at all. All they wanted was an excuse. If I Ching insisted that he did not have the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit, they could still destroy the Black Heaven sect. Not only would they be able to avenge the 3 of them, but they would also gain a new power in the lower realm. If I Ching did have the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit, that would be an even bigger surprise. And they really did have that thing. Everyone present understood this logic, and could see it clearly. However, in the face of the upper realm's aristocratic families, the tiny Black Heaven sect did not even have the right to resist them. The strength of the 2 sides was not proportional at all. Moreover, there were so many low-level disciples. No matter what the result was, the Black Heaven sect would suffer heavy losses. I did indeed see the Thousand Leaves vegetation spirit in the secret realm. I Ching's expression darkened. Naturally, he had guessed the other party's intentions. He walked past the crowd and said, but it was not your Xian Yuan family who brought it into the mystic realm. As soon as he said this, the traveling immortals on the lotus flower all paused. On the other hand, the people of the Black Heaven sect were in an uproar. They all turned to look at I Ching with unfriendly eyes, especially those disciples who did not know the truth. It can't be. So he really took it. No wonder the people of the Upper Azure world are so angry. Isn't he a sword cultivator? Why would he want that sacred alchemy item? Who wouldn't be jealous of that kind of treasure? I saw that he was only a nascent soul before, but the moment he came out of the mystic realm, he was already a soul formation cultivator. Who would believe that he didn't have a treasure on him? Sigh, how did our Black Heaven sect produce such a person? The more Lone Moon listened, the angrier he became. He wanted to rush into the crowd and sew up these idiots' mouths. Even some hall masters turned around and tried to persuade I Ching. Supremacy I Ching, if you really took that 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit, why don't you return it to them? Why drag the sect down with you? Shut up. Lone Moon's heart sank. He glared at the person who spoke. How could he say something like that? When those 3 people came to Black Heaven sect, if not for their incompetence, how could I Ching, a nascent soul cultivator who had just entered the sect, enter? It was not easy for him to come back. He even brought back so many spirit herbs and gave them all to the sect. Now that a disaster was upon them, were they going to disregard his life for the sake of survival? How shameless could they be? Moreover, it was obvious that the Xian Yuan family was deliberately looking for trouble. How could they blame it on I Ching alone? He was just unlucky enough to be captured by the images of those 3 people before they died. This is not what I said. It's from the Upper Azure world. That person took a step back, but he still did not give up. Lone Moon. Yu Yang frowned and stepped forward to persuade him. You can't blame them. After all, this concerns the sect. We have to look at the bigger picture. Senior brother? Lone Moon's eyes widened in disbelief. You think so too? Yu Yang looked at the people above and said in a low voice. You should understand that in front of the enemy, protecting the sect is more important. The truth is not important. Not important. Lone Moon paused and suddenly understood something. His eyes widened, and he looked at the hall masters around him in disbelief. Everyone moved away. Even Shichio turned his head away. Had they already made up their minds? Because they had to answer to the Upper Azure world. For the sake of the sect, they had decided to push I Ching out. Because sacrificing one person was better than destroying the entire sect? His eyes widened. Suddenly, he felt that the sect that he had been with for hundreds of years was a little unfamiliar. I Ching's expression did not change. It was as if he had already guessed that this would happen. It was because of this that he would rather be an itinerant cultivator than join a sect. Even though there were so many people here, it was also the most heartless place. Ignoring the crowd, he said in a low voice, the vegetation spirit that I've seen grows in that ancient mystic realm. It doesn't belong to the Xian Yuan family. What a joke. The traveling immortal laughed coldly. If the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit doesn't belong to the Xian Yuan family, whose does it belong to? Mine. Just as he finished speaking, a woman's voice suddenly spoke up. The traveling immortal paused. He turned his head and looked around. A moment later, his gaze landed on a woman standing beside I Ching. Her hand was raised in the air. His brows furrowed. Immortal? Who are you? I'm his master. Shening pointed at I Ching. It was rare for her to remember her own identity. Let me correct you. Out of the 3 of you, only the one who ate the wrong medicine, yes, the one in the mirror on the right, was killed by Chef. My disciple. I did the rest. The kind that got paid. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.